This is Michelle Ruff, the voice of Jill Valentine, and when I'm not stranded on the Queen Zenobia, I listen to the Crimson Head Elder podcast.
Can you see that area behind me beneath the red tinted sky? That is what's left of Raccoon City.
Our platoon is cut off. No survivors found.
I'd rather starve to death in here than be eaten by one of those undead monsters!
We're both gonna die.
Wait, don't shoot!
Down! I lost all my men because of her!
All is lost. Cries of agony.
Stars!
Unity breeds power. Power is life.
Biohazard.
I'm Reva DePaula, the voice of Rebecca Chambers. Welcome to the Crimson Head Elder Podcast.
I'm Ed Smarin, the voice, Barry Burton. Welcome to the Crimson Head Elder Podcast.
Home. A welcoming place. A haven of safety and warmth. Where families meet for laughter and feasts. Where friends and strangers are welcomed to the family.
Hey guys, my name is Sara Coates, the voice of Marguerite Baker in Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, and you are listening to Crimson Head Elder Podcast. Wanna come to dinner?
Where am I? What the hell?
Rise and shine, sleepyhead. It's time for supper. Eat it. It's good.
Dumb son of a bitch wasn't no good if it hit him.
Lucas!
Damn, old man, not again.
Get out the way, Marguerite. Hit boy's got to eat. He got to have his supper. Let's do this. Come on.
Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit! He's not eating it, Jack! He's not eating it!
Shut the hell up,
I
Marguerite!
made that for him!
Get the hell out of here!
You're a son of a bitch! Oh, I can't believe it! You son of a bitch! He's not eating it! He's not eating it!
Who are you people? Where am
Welcome to the Crimson Head Elder Podcast. This evening, we've invited to dinner a very special guest, the multi-talented Sara Coates, actor for Resident Evil 7 antagonist Marguerite Baker. Preceding our exclusive interview and Resident Evil file readings with Scream Queen Sara Coates, we'll debate and review Resident Evil 7 with our largest panel to date from our survival horror community website. But right now, we enter Hell's Kitchen for another Crimson Head Elder exclusive podcast interview. When not battling her way through a zombie apocalypse in television's hit zombie series Z Nation on the wonderful horror and sci-fi network SYFY, this evening's guest can be seen more serenely on the big screen playing Savannah in Lynn Shelton's romantic comedy Laggies, highly experienced theatre actor with many of Shakespeare's classics under her belt, a theatre degree graduate from the University of Washington, and with many other highly trained skills to her bow, including comedian, writer, and stilt walker. So extremely kind to grace us so soon after the release of the epic Resident Evil 7, actress for the matriarch from hell, Marguerite Baker. Sara Coates, welcome to the 9th Crimson Head Elder podcast.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. You have no idea. This is so exciting.
I'm George Trevor from England, and with me we've got the Oracle Dragon from the site over in Pennsylvania.
That I am, and I'm surviving a snowstorm. And there's no zombies in sight, which is a good thing.
Thank goodness.
Sarah, you've been so generously kind to accept these questions from your fans from all over the globe. Your Resident Evil fans, your Z Nation fans. So I'll hand over to the Oracle Dragon for the first question.
Yay.
First question's from me, of course. Did Capcom ever show you any concept art to get a general idea who she is?
We did see some art, which was really exciting. She looked terrifying. But it gave me an idea of age, also how the person would walk, being an older woman. And I assumed that she ran the house and she did all the cleaning. And so it just kind of put all the pieces together when I saw what she looked like as well. Because I could kind of figure it out from her lines and her dialogue, which was so crazy. But it was interesting to see just a still photograph of her. She's gorgeous.
She was before she got changed.
Before she turned terrifying. So after we would do some mocap, we would later go in and do some VO stuff in the studio, and they would show us really raw images of the game, and then we would put the two together. So, if a scene that I physically couldn't do because I was changing into this monster, then I would watch the footage and then just do voiceover for that.
This is obviously 2 years prior to release, but you were able to see with the boss battle where some of the lines are really quite emotional, to say the least. You were able to see scenes from that.
Yes, and then scenes, and the different options like dying. It was very strenuous on my voice. I remember we had to push a day because I had lost my voice completely. One day just going after it, and it's interesting when someone tells you to be a monster, how you're like, okay, let me try to figure this out, and then your voice just goes away. So
during that boss battle, there's sound manipulation with the lines when Marguerite's in her mutated state. So were you asked to bear that in mind and to voice it in quite a different way to, let's say, when Marguerite's hunting you down and shouting profanities, and still just as intense, but not in that kind of mutated form?
Absolutely. I know they added, they changed it a bit, but we did go into a lower register, really try and get this monster voice out. And Naveed is really fun, the director, because he would be in the booth trying, like, if he really wanted like a lower register, he would do it, and we would like kind of go back and forth being like, ah, ah, like just screaming to figure out where we wanted it to go.
Marguerite, open up. Found another one.
I'm coming. Oh, she's so young.
Yeah. How's our other guest?
Sleeping, poor thing.
Well, I say let him. He'll be okay here for a few days. Leastwise till we can get him into town.
Zoe, go get some fresh clothes from the laundry room, okay? Oh, looks like there's some sort of oil spill or something.
Yes.
Let's get this poor girl some fresh clothes and into a warm bed. We'll put her in Lucas's old room.
Oh, come on. Can't you put her somewhere else? Oh, Lucas, you just hush. You've long outgrown that room. Always wanted to run a bed and breakfast.
You got your big break, didn't you? Get her to bed. I'll put some soup on. Ugh. Good night for soup, don't you think? Excuse me, Lucas. Around the air, on the ground. What the hell's going on? Mama, is that you? Zoe, come look. Come see her gift. Look at all the pretties my little girl is giving me! Kiss me, lover!
Get to the garage! Get some rope! Go, now!
Oh, get out of my way, Jack! The girl's our favorite now, and we're hers!
When I got the call for the audition, it was very secretive. I didn't know what I was doing, didn't know what it was for a year and a half, at least. And we signed many non-disclosure agreements, and we couldn't tell anyone what we were doing. And so when I auditioned, I originally auditioned for Zoe. And I have a very strong presence apparently. And so she said, I'm going to have you read for the mother. And I was like, great, totally wonderful. They wanted us to use the entire room and to get really creepy. And actually at one point they just said, hey, you're going to turn into a monster. And I was like, cool. Yes. Great. I'll do that. Theater background, improv background helped out with that. And then in the audition process, they also had us reading the dinner scene with the other actors. So I had met the actors that I ended up working with because we all auditioned together.
It's interesting because we often hear, and it sounds like such a shame that some of these wonderful actors that are brought together never really even get to meet each other and don't get to play off each other and see each other's reactions and facial expressions. I would have thought would help with the performance. So it's great to hear that you guys actually did work together on such an iconic scene.
Oh, yeah. And we actually had about a week of rehearsals before we actually filmed it. And we had a vocal coach come in, and they were really focused on the performances, which I thought was extremely exciting because I've done voiceover work before where you go into a booth and they just throw lines at you and, you know, you don't really get to think about it. You just do it and it's your job and you leave. And this was, we worked really hard and worked together, and it was exciting.
And there was mocap work involved in that scene as well, wasn't there?
Yes, absolutely. We did quite a bit of mocap work, which was exciting because it was my first time doing a full body motion capture. And it's, you know, with the big, the camera on the front and your face all having the dots out. There's probably real words for these.
No, it's at this stage I have to try and articulate a way that's not creepy to at least put you at rest and say that you certainly don't look like your character in the game.
It's funny that you say that because when I see pictures of her in the game, I'm like, oh, that looks like me. Oh, wow.
Work on your self-confidence.
I think it looks really cool. I was like, oh, wow, I look wonderful. And I like to consider myself a chameleon. I like to play different ages. It's a challenge. And what's interesting about the group that we had, we all were not necessarily the age of our character. So it was really interesting to dive into these characters knowing that none of us really look like them. You had to change your thought process in tackling the role because, you know, I'm looking at Evelyn and she is this like gorgeous woman who's playing a child. So it's, you know, it just kind of, it messes with you a little bit. Right after this job, I went into House of Moves where we filmed this, and they had me come in to play Barbie's best friend, Harper.
Quite a change.
Oh my gosh, screaming these profanities and just go insane. And then the next time I go in, I'm like this 16-year-old girl who plays like Barbie's best friend. And we talk about hair.
We'll come on to Marguerite's potty mouth. Yeah, it must have been very cathartic, some of those lines.
It was wonderful. It was wonderful. And it was great. Naveed, who was the director, he also did Grand Theft Auto. He was really open to allowing us, because sometimes when people write a script, it's not necessarily how you would say it. And so he would let us work on the lines, change them a bit if we wanted to, and then kind of improvise. So if I wanted to swear more or if something happened in the scene.
Oh, that's interesting. We've got a question that will come on to that. Now, our second question, which comes from Sarah L.Y. from your part of the world over in Los Angeles, she references actually the very iconic dinner table experience, and she wanted to know if Capcom furnished you with any reference materials. She suggests the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and, well, controversially or not controversially, she asked about the new Trump administration, if that was reference material. Crimson Elder from Wales, he also wanted to know along those lines, during that family dinner sequence, the Bakers have a very close resemblance to the family in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and during the bedroom DLC, he feels there's a very strong vibe of Kathy Bates, the Misery. Were you aware of any of this, and were these some reference materials that maybe you were furnished with or you thought about during your performance?
Absolutely. I'm a huge horror movie fan. They didn't give us materials saying like, hey, this is who you are. But we definitely sat down with the director and the producers, and we kind of discussed who the family was and that they were at one time normal They were a loving family that lived this backwoods life. And we did discuss Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It was 2 years ago, so the Trump administration. If we filmed it now, the performance would probably be a lot scarier. And I definitely thought of Kathy Bates. So we, when we filmed that was definitely something that Naveed talked to me about and kind of gave notes about, of going from seeming very kind and then just flipping a switch and becoming absolutely insane. So that was really fun to work with. Stressful, but fun to work with.
You mention the high production values in the voice acting and the focus that was on that. That doesn't come as a surprise, because I don't know if you would have been aware of this before, and maybe if you had been, I would imagine quite daunting to know that this arguably would be the first installment in the Resident Evil series where the voice acting is so vital to the gameplay. This is a return back to the slower pace, the survival horror. So to have gameplay where you're not reliant on shooting your way through, and actually the only way to survive is to hide from the antagonist, that scene where you're hiding from Marguerite and the delivery of your lines, if you don't get those lines graphic and as resonating as they were, the gameplay falls on its ass. Mm-hmm. So it was just a real testament to your delivery that gameplay worked.
When I think back and how we weren't told what it was, what we were doing for such a long time, I think that kind of was a positive, because there wasn't any stress on us. It was just, you guys are playing these characters, and we were so immersed in who they were. We knew it was a horror game, and we had somewhat of idea. For a while we tossed around, do you think it's Silent Hill? Do you think, and we kind of guessed, but then we just kind of did our job. And I think that lends to, there was no stress on our backs, because we went in and we worked really hard and we created these characters. And for me, it almost felt like a really long play that I was doing. Like I would go in like a week, a month, and just really immerse myself into this crazy woman. And it was really fun and exciting. So it was just, I'm glad that there wasn't any of that pressure. But I do know that it was such a comeback. I wouldn't consider myself a gamer. I would consider myself gamer adjacent. My brother, he's 5 years older. His name is John. He's the best. I used to watch him play Contra. Like we would watch the old games, like Donkey Kong Country was one of my favorites to just watch him.
That's a great game, yeah. And Contra as well. I'm a big Contra fan.
Yes.
And I know Riva De Paula, who plays Rebecca Chambers, she mentioned Contra as well. We're in great company when we've got a voice actor that knows about Contra.
Well, and it's because of my brother, and my mom actually let us stay home from school one day, I remember, to let my brother beat Mario Brothers. He was about to beat Bowser, and she was like, all right, you don't have to go to school today. So I love watching them. I love playing, and I think we talked about this before, but like side scrolling left to right, jumping over things. But the 3D world is just so different for me, but I love watching it. So it was exciting, and I knew of Resident Evil, and I remember watching people play it and being terrified. And so to be a part of it is really very cool.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you've done some voice work in Mario Kart. Would I be right to think that?
I did, yes. It was one of those things. I lived in Seattle, and I went in, and they just had me do like, boop, 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 like make crazy. So it's one of those where you just kind of get like extra work. And
that was great.
So yeah, I've done little stuff. I've never had an actual character in a game before. Yeah.
Going on from there, Vito, he wanted to know what inspired you in this performance. You're known to have for the Southern accent, and obviously your work on Z Nation as well. So with those in mind and other things, other inspirations perhaps that you had for this performance?
I just was so excited to play a villain. I normally play quirky friends or crazy weird, like I always play an odd character, but it was so exciting to play a normal woman who's changed. So inside she's fighting. So yeah, like we spoke about before, like Kathy Bates in Misery was really someone I looked at, or in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Morpheus Duval from Brazil, he says, "This is awesome. I can't wait to hear from the actor behind the voice. I'm not kidding. I had to turn my lights on all the way through the scenario with Marguerite. I still can't get her screaming out of my head. It haunts me to this day. Would Sarah consider reading Margaret's files? To hear that voice again, to bring the files to life, would be intense.
I think that would be awesome. And then because I haven't played the game yet, I just read the files, which are really exciting. So, maybe I might just do that.
And now for a Crimson Head Elder exclusive, as we present Sara Coates, the actress for Marguerite Baker, reading in character as Marguerite from the files of Resident Evil 7. Listen to our star guest masterfully portray the torment suffered as Marguerite Baker struggles to understand the profound changes ravaging her mind and body. Listen now to Sara Coates' in-character recording of the Resident Evil 7 file, Marguerite's Notebook.
October 11th. My ears have been ringing all day, and I haven't been able to sleep since that child showed up. It's like Zoe says. There's something strange about the child and the woman she brought with her. October 15th. I'm seeing things, hearing things. Can't stop feeling nauseous. I went to the doctor in town, and he gave me an x-ray. What's happening to me? October 23rd. The child gave me a present. October. I put the present in a secret room right in the back of the second floor where nobody will find it. The arm is a sign of the child's trust. That arm will lead us to happiness. And anyone who corrupts that happiness, I won't allow them to live.
Stay tuned for a further wonderful in-character reading of another iconic Resident Evil 7 file performed by Sara Coates exclusively for the Crimson Head Elder podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Crimson_Head and our YouTube channel, Crimson Head Elder TV, for more in-character recordings of iconic Resident Evil files from across the series by Capcom's official actors. And now, back to the Oracle Dragon and our exclusive interview with Sara Coates.
Dice Gamers and Hank Foreman both have a similar question. How did you prepare before delivering Marguerite's lines? Were there any films to watch, games to play, and/or books to read to prepare yourself for this role?
Just loving the horror genre, even like with Z Nation and just these crazy heightened situations. And for Marguerite, every line was almost do or die. It was insane, but she thought she was sane kind of thing. So it was, back to Kathy Bates. And I didn't realize how strenuous this was going to be, especially doing motion capture. And after the first day, I went home, I got a migraine. I was like, this is going to be difficult.
Well, you mentioned about being out for a day, and that was the thing that really first piqued my interest and my attention was when, during that scene when you're hiding from Marguerite, the torment as the duration increases and her frustration increases, that she can't find you, the torment in the lines. And I really sat up and was like, wow, this is real tormented emotion that I've not really heard before in a Resident Evil game on that level from an antagonist, and wonderful performance. And that's what made the gameplay, kept you wanting to hide from Marguerite.
Yeah.
'Cause it's not just the way she looks, that voice really fills you with dread.
Well, it's definitely a testament to Naveed, the director, of allowing us to go there. It wasn't just like, hey, we need to get these lines, we need to do this quick and get it over with. We really, he gave us the time we needed. I am definitely an actor who puts all of my emotion, and I really go there, and it, sometimes it hurts me emotionally. And, if she's frustrated and she's crying, I'm frustrated and I'm crying. Them allowing us to do that in the video game setting, I think, is what made the performances by everyone seem so realistic, because we were allowed to do that. Because a lot of the time when you go in and you do voiceover work, it's just in and out quickly. They don't have a lot of time in the studio. And this was really a group effort and hilariously a family effort because we did play off each other, which was great.
Zoe!
Family comes first is what I say. Oh, that Evelyn. Such a sweet little thing.
Zoe. I'm so sorry. I don't know what's wrong with me.
Mama.
Stay away. Don't touch her. Don't hurt my family.
I don't understand, Mama. What's going on?
Here. Take it. Take it. Go.
Don't worry, Mama. I'll go get help.
A lot of the plates and carrying out food, that was there. But I was told that, like, for the bug, there wasn't an actual bug.
Yeah, after you deliver your first line, it's great. And that's the thing that you can really come through the motion capture work is it's so subtle and realistic is when you slap your neck crawling, and you can really feel it, the bugs crawling all over your skin. It's great work.
Thank you. Yeah, that was part of, we rehearsed that. They told us there were bugs on us, and it was just, and then we also got to improvise a little bit. So it was great.
Yeah, because there's one part where Jackal actually said, "I will crush you like a bug." And I thought, wait a minute, she smacked a bug on a table and ate it. He says this, and then next thing you know, you find her later covered in bugs. Oh!
My thought is she smacked it and just put it away, like it would lived in her. That was my idea.
Oh, you can hear the crunch, crunch, crunch. It's like, oh, okay.
I'm terrified of every insect.
Oh my god! I don't know if you've seen it right the way through. I wouldn't recommend watching the boss battle with Marguerite. I mean, it's quite gruesome.
I kind of want to play I haven't played it yet, and I want to video myself playing it.
Face capture too. Yes. Catch your reaction like, oh.
As much as I say I love horror movies, I'm also terrified of them, and I love being scared. So I'm really excited to.
Oh well, you'd love this game. The real heightened tension and suspense and horror as well that's been missing in previous titles. So that leads us nicely into a question from Robert Kendo over to the Oracle Dragon that's got that one.
Robert Kendo from Michigan says, "Let me start by saying bravo, bravo. You did an excellent job. Resident Evil has a new way of adding actual people into their games rather than just voice acting, creating a more lifelike experience. With this addition comes the need for not only voicing the character, but also becoming the character. What has the experience been like for you? Did you find it difficult acting in motion capture, or did you enjoy it?"
I loved the experience. When you're doing film, there's this need to always worry what you look like, and and I love getting my hair and makeup done, don't get me wrong, but going in and your main job is to play the character and become the character and not worry about, do I look okay? Is there something weird on my face? Is my hair out of place? And to just be fully immersed in, especially like Marguerite's crazy, and then having the character's image put on top of my performance. So it was almost a relief in a way. And I definitely loved the experience, and I would love to do it all the time.
Excellent.
I can imagine that motion capture would have been quite demanding.
It is. And what's interesting that I didn't really realize about motion capture is there is the technical element. So yes, you are performing, but say, let's go to the scene where the character's in bed and I'm haunting him and switching from terrified to angry to sad and going through all these emotions. If I accidentally knock off a sensor on my motion capture suit, we have to stop and redo the scene. So there is very much a technical aspect in the sense of, so if I have a knife in my hands and I have to stab in his face, I have to do it in a certain way. It took a while to get used to that pace of we had to run through the technical part first, and then I had to prepare for the performance and then add the technical part to the performance. So it was daunting. It was difficult, but it was worth it in the end, I hope.
And I don't know if it helps you as an actor to voice the lines whilst you're in motion, or do you then voice the lines in separately in a sound booth?
We do it while we're in motion.
Ah.
Yeah, so we do the whole thing. We have our motion capture suit, our camera, and our audio equipment on. So everything's on.
I'd imagine that would maybe aid your performance as opposed to being isolated in a booth and maybe constrained and not being able to kind of, really get into the role.
Absolutely. 100% agree. That's why I feel like the performances were very heightened. They were very big.
This comes from the Oracle Dragon, who would like to know, what were the challenges of voicing such a character? Was it particularly difficult?
Absolutely. It surprised me how difficult it was. And the character who played Jack, his name is Jack, which was easy for me to remember. Because sometimes when you're working on a play, you end up calling the person by their character name a lot. But Jack and I, we both, after maybe the first week or two, we were like, this is really hurting our voices because it was so strenuous. And Jack is in a band in real life, and he's a singer, and he was giving me like more vocal warm-ups to do. And it was just extremely challenging because when I auditioned, I didn't know that this character turned into a monster, and having to find that. And I love zombie films and, of course, C Nation. And so knowing the zombie noises and using those, it's really strenuous and hard on your vocal cords. So it was a lot harder than I thought, but it got easier after a while. I figured out how to not hurt myself.
And now, on the Crimson Head Elder podcast, we proudly present another in-character exclusive file reading by our star guest, Sara Coates. Sara Coates, exclusively reading in character as Marguerite Baker from the Resident Evil 7 file, Marguerite's Warning.
Zoe, you tried to sneak up to the second floor again, didn't you? Did you think I wouldn't notice? Even after all that happened to Evelyn, you just keep talking about some strange medicine. And what are you planning to do with my altar? You better keep those sticky fingers off of it. Nobody touches my sacred altar. You think your father and I are idiots. You spoiled, pathetic child. I wish you'd never been born. Unforgivably pathetic, yet always looking down on us and trying to leave our home. After everything I've done for you. You pathetic, pathetic, pathetic! If you ever touch my altar, I will slice off your chest and I will serve it up as a pot roast.
Ellen Wenpei Mao, he asks, what direction, if any, did you receive directly from the Japanese director and or the producer?
We definitely had the Japanese directors and producers there, and it was really fun to, after we do a scene, we'd all kind of look over at them to see if we did okay. But they worked really well with Naveed, and it was just kind of like a big team and a big family. And there wasn't any specific direction that I can think of that they gave us. They were just really impressed and kind and positive about our performances, and the creepier the better, which was fun. And they would kind of give us line readings sometimes, especially with I remember with the Marguerite scene where the character's laying in bed, the game player's laying in bed and stabbing him, and they would give me examples of how they wanted me to stab, and it was very fun to try and give them what they wanted. I miss them.
You sleep well, darling? Our daughter really likes you. She wants you to be her big brother. Oh, now don't get too excited. Don't jump up and down just yet. You want to be part of this family, you gotta eat like family. That smells good, don't it? You eat all this and you can be one of us. Then I'll take those things off and you can go out and play. But you gotta eat all of it. Come on now, eat up. I made that just for you.
Wow. This looks delicious. Really, it looks great.
Oh, good. I'll be back in a little bit to check on you.
Wait, is there anything else to eat?
Ugh, why are you so stubborn? You better eat or I'm gonna shove it down your throat. You don't need nothing else. Now eat your goddamn supper. Francie, where are you? That hurt me, you son of a bitch! No!
M. Greg from New Jersey, his sentiment I wanted to just read to you. He says, well done, well done. Marguerite gave me more chills than any other antagonist in the game. You owned this role. So is Marguerite, in fact, your favourite character from Resident Evil 7? If not, who is and why?
Of course, Marguerite is my favorite character. I just love, and I haven't played it yet, so I can't give 100% answer. But I really love Jack's voice as well, and the character who played Lucas, because we were together so much. It was so fun to hang out with them and play with them, and they're all theater actors and been in the business a long time. So it was very fun to just play with these really professional, talented guys. And I also love the Mia character. I never get to play the damsel in distress, so I
But interestingly, you auditioned for her as well, you mentioned.
yes, I did. But I loved her voice. I loved how she could go from going into that zombie monster character, and she is incredible as well.
It's after she's been chainsawed and she's sort of talking also almost mockingly, lovingly, and then she goes into this, that fucking hurt. And yeah, just within one sentence, the tone changes. It's quite dramatic.
Oh, yeah, and she's incredible. We both have worked at Disney World before, which is really funny. We're both in the early 2000s. We were both face characters at Walt Disney World. And so she has this like princess face, and to see her change from, this sweet, beautiful voice girl to this terrifying monster. And she also does a lot of special effects makeup, and she does some scary stuff. She's a really great girl and very talented. So professional. She's incredible.
Nemesis from Brazil, he asks, Resident Evil 7 sets the bar for voice acting work. The cast did an awesome job. This was the best example of the art the series has offered to date. Sara Coates, you did an insane job producing the most hideous, scary voice. My question is, where did you find those tones? They sound like they came from an actress much older. And with video game experience, I noticed that this was your first time voice acting in the video game genre.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of crazy voices and goofy voices, and I've just my entire life I love doing accent work, and so it was extremely fun to find where her voice sat on my register. Kind of, this is going to sound horrible, but she's like a southern version of my mom. Yelling at me as a kid, she would just go into this lower tone and it would terrify me. And so and my mom's from the Midwest, so she has this, oh my gosh, Midwestern accent. And so instead of that, I went into the Southern. She's basically a Southern, my mom, but a monster.
I'm not sure if I would like to meet your mom. She sounds quite intimidating.
She's actually.
You better hope she's not listening to this.
Yeah.
She probably will. She's very sweet and like the kindest woman in the world. But if she yells at you, you know that you've messed up.
You've been yelled at.
Sweet, kind woman, but when you did something wrong, you didn't put your dishes away, you didn't put your laundry away, she would let you know.
great time to come to this question, which goes back to perhaps where Marguerite maybe resembled a more sweeter lady. The Oracle Dragon's going to ask you one of my favourite questions that's coming.
Yeah.
Oracle?
We never seen a human side of her, unlike the rest of the family. How do you think Margaret would have been in the scene where Jack sanely reveals the truth to Ethan? Would you be willing to do a voiceover of this part with a sane Marguerite instead of Jack?
Oh, that would be awesome. And it's a beautiful scene. It would be exciting to explore. And I was so impressed with Jack's work on that scene. There are definitely moments where you see that she's hurting. And I feel that pain is a struggle inside of her of, she's being changed by the virus. But I think that she was a sweet woman that just did everything for her family. And I think that shows with how she treats these bugs now that are her family. So I think that her love of family, in whatever sense, if that's her real family or these bugs, is who she is. So I think part of her remained, even though she transformed into this monster. So that's where I think she came from.
It really is wonderful just to hear an actor who really understood the role, because that torment, as I said, comes through in the lines. You can hear that pain, that anguish when she's screaming out at you as you're hiding, and you can hear she almost in her voice sounds betrayed, and screams at Mia for being so ungrateful, and you can she really feels betrayed.
Yeah, and I think that is a testament to who she was, and this struggle. In my mind, playing Marguerite, the virus was something that slowly attacked her and slowly took away the way she normally thought. And so for me, it was an inner struggle of that change. And so with those moments of pain and distress, it was also like an inner struggle for her, because of course she doesn't want to be changing, but these things are so terrifying. So that's kind of where I went with it in my mind to get to that performance.
James Marcus from Colombia, he asks, I'm a big Z Nation fan, and yet I would never have placed that voice emanating from Marguerite as the very same lady behind Magnificent Serena. I have to ask, how did your time on Z Nation help with the role of Marguerite? What crossovers did you encounter between a TV show zombie fest and a video game zombie fest?
Oh my gosh, I love this question. Thank you, James. I think just the craziness from each show. Z Nation is a crazy, you never know what to expect. There's comedy, there's tears, and my character in Z Nation, Serena, aka Pie Girl, she's a nut and really passionate about the apocalypse and has this will to survive. And I think I kind of took that will to survive to Marguerite, not knowing what was going on with her. She's changing, she's scared, but she has to survive. And even if it's surviving as the villain, and then she needs to take care of her family. Serena in Z Nation gives birth to a hybrid zombie baby. And I think that her number one priority is to protect and take care of her family. And that would be Murphy, her baby daddy, and her baby Lucy. And the same with Marguerite. Her number one priority is family.
Yeah.
And so even though the characters are vastly different in age and look and who they are, I think both of them focus on family first in their creepy, weird ways. Yeah.
Focusing a little on that Serena character and the type of zombie show that Z Nation is, I was interested as an actor, is it quite challenging to cover quite demanding and serious subjects, being a lone surviving woman pregnant during an apocalypse, whilst portraying that in a zombie show that, unlike others, doesn't take itself so seriously, and there are elements of comedy as well. Is it quite challenging to find where to gauge that performance?
It is, but when you're surrounded by such a team that knows deep down the show is about surviving, so as long as you take the role and the character seriously, so that I always like to think of the characters as real people, and then all of this stuff just happens to them. So I'm not playing like a caricature of a human being. I'm not playing an idea of a person or a stereotype of a person. If you play that person realistically, even if they're weird or crazy or insane, it's going to make the character come off realistically, which is important, especially because I play a lot of character actors. I play a lot of odd, quirky people. And I think the reason they work or they're so successful is because, to me, that is their reality. That is their norm. So, Serena in Z Nation being so weird and such an odd duck, that's just how she's always lived. So she doesn't know any different. And so that's where I like to go to make them realistic, because I consider myself a character actress. So taking these weird people that a lot of people don't want to play or can't play or are scared to play, that's always my challenge. I like playing vastly different characters. It's important to me to stretch my abilities as an actor. And I feel so lucky to play vastly different characters. But I like these characters, and they actually get me so excited. Like when I first read Serena, I was like, ooh, I can play this. Absolutely. And when I first was given Marguerite, which was in the audition, they were like, hey, here, take this, go outside. You have like 5 minutes, read this, and then come back in. When I read what she was saying, it was terrifying and exciting. And I get to pull from scary or hard moments in my life. And that's what I really like to do, is to take, anything negative that's happened to me and use it to make these people come alive.
Well, it really comes through in this interview, and fans who will follow our link to your official website will see as well from that you very much embrace and very enthusiastic in the whole zombie genre and the horror genre. I've seen you've reached out to your Italian fans, proudly wearing your zombie t-shirt. So I think I probably already know the answer to USS Command's question. He's from Kentucky, and he wanted to know whether you watch, if you actually sit down and watch your work on Z Nation.
Oh, yeah. I am a fan of the show. So even if I'm not in an episode, I still watch it. I still live tweet it. And the people on the show are my friends. So it's kind of like watching your friends as well. And I am a fan of Walking Dead. I just love the zombie world in general.
I'm interested in that difference between The Walking Dead and Z Nation, because I think it set itself out initially in the first season to be almost quite a high drama, or trying to be the high drama of the zombie genre. It's arguable whether it sort of succeeded in that in certain areas. I think perhaps works better when you've got a show like Z Nation that doesn't try and take itself too seriously, and so kind of doesn't open itself out to that criticism. It's interesting, there's one scene in The Walking Dead, an example of this, the episode No Way Out from season 6, where Rick single-handedly decides, sod this hiding from the zombies, I'm just going to go out into a huge horde of them and just try and take them out. Whereas in the previous seasons of The Walking Dead, he would have been bitten immediately. That was the narrative of the show. Suddenly, out of the blue, in this episode No Way Out, they all come together and they all just hurl themselves into these huge hordes of zombies. And that got criticised for just being completely ridiculous and completely contrary and illogical to anything that the show set up before. And that mirrored, sorry, there is a question at the end of this, that mirrors your death scene in Z Nation, where you come out, I wondered where it came from, this blood-curdling cry. You get all the zombies' attention onto you, and you effectively do what Rick does. And again, because the show doesn't try and take itself too seriously, I think actually that similar scene works better in Z Nation than it does in The Walking Dead. That's your death scene.
Absolutely. And what is interesting and I think kind of lucky about Z Nation is that they because it doesn't take itself too seriously, we're allowed to do more than, Walking Dead is set in more of, I'm going to say, realism. And the fans, like, if something happens to these characters, the fans would just flip tables and freak out. And in Z Nation, it's kind of like, well, this is what happens. So again, I think the difference between those two scenes is Serena is saving her family. She's doing this for her family. And I think that Rick is just fed up. And he, it's not like his baby is in the middle of the zombies and he has to go save it. And Serena is attracting these zombies to save her baby. So it makes more sense to me in that way. But I love The Walking Dead. It's so good.
Albert Wesker 187 says, I want to start off by saying this is an honor, a privilege, and a blessing to have you star on our podcast. A big thank you to the very beautiful and talented Sara Coates, for taking the time in her busy schedule to answer our questions. And his question is, what are the most common mistakes you believe that aspiring actors or actresses can make? He's going to love it when you were doing that.
There's a reason why whenever we have a female voice actor, we don't let David on the show. Or we make sure he takes a cold shower beforehand.
Hello, David. I will answer his question. Thank you for the question, David. I think the most common mistake, and of course I've made it many times, is when people self-doubt. I truly believe that acting is a marathon, not a sprint. And when you have a success, people are like, assume that you just started doing this, but they don't realize that you've been acting for 15 years already, or however many years you've been doing it. So you just can't quit, because there's going to be ebbs and flows, and it's going to be extremely difficult, but you have to focus on your work, and your work is the character and portraying the character the best you can. So just not stopping. Before I did anything big, like before I got Laggies, which was played opposite Keira Knightley in that, I had been working for, I think, 11 years in theater and tiny commercials. And, I just didn't stop. And I think that's the main mistake people make is they quit because they think it's not going to happen. And you just have to keep going. And I think being easy to work with and saying yes. The best gigs or things that I love to work on, I've been asked to do because someone else has said, hey, Sara is really easy to work with and she's fun to work with. That is I cherish that people say that, because that's my main goal in life, is to be fun and easy to work with and work with people I like. And so at House of Moves, I did Resident Evil, and now I'm doing this Barbie thing, but I'm working with the same people that worked on Resident Evil, and they're my friends now. So I feel lucky to work with people I care about. So just saying yes, even if it's a weird thing that you're not quite sure about. I didn't know what Resident Evil was. I didn't know for a year and a half what I was working on. It could have been anything, and it was crazy. So trusting my instincts and knowing that this was going to be something I was excited about.
When did you find out that it was Resident Evil, and not just any video game, but, a video game celebrating its 20th anniversary?
I know. Well, I knew it was a video game. Well, what was funny is all the cast members didn't work together all the time. So they were shooting and I wasn't there that day when they were kind of told, hey, it's Resident Evil. And then a few months passed and we'd still work together. And then someone brought it up and I was like, wait, this is Resident Evil? And someone was like, no. So I was the last person to know months before it came out. So I haven't actually known that long. We had guessed, we'd kind of put two and two together because we didn't at first even know it was Capcom. Then we saw the script and then we signed all these non-disclosure agreements. So I didn't know for a very long time. But when I did find out, the first person I called was my brother because...
And then your cool status goes through the roof.
Yes. And when I could finally tell him, and because I had the secret for so long, and so I could finally be like, oh my gosh. And then I immediately ordered it on Amazon and sent it to him so he could play it right away. And I wanted him to tell me, I wanted him to say, you killed me.
Oh, well, wonderful. Now, Albert Wesker 187, he has another question, and it also kind of ties in with Resi Evil Chick 99, who wanted to know, well, Albert first asks, what is your favourite show or project or even character that you've either played or been associated with? And going on from that, Resi Evil Chick 99, she wanted to know, what is your all-time favourite female villain?
Oh my gosh, that's a good one. Okay, so first, I would have to say, because I played her for so long and I might play her again, is Serena from Z Nation. It's the genre I love. I'm a huge Battlestar Galactica fan, so I love to be on the Sci-Fi Network, to get to work on a zombie horror show. I love focusing on comedy, so it's like all these things I love. And I love Comic-Cons, and I love the ability to be able to, in the future, go to those. So it's just kind of like all around an incredible character that I got to kind of mold as well. Because when Serena was written, she was written for one episode. So it was just this beautiful experience in general. I'm also in a movie coming out in March. It's called Lane 1974, and it's something completely opposite than what I've done in the past. I play a hippie in the 1970s, and it's just this really peaceful, kind earth flower child person that when I got to go to San Francisco and I didn't shower for 2 weeks. It was like this extremely wonderful experience.
That's actually based around family, isn't it? And that does seem like a very fascinating character.
And it really was. And I normally play like these really like strong, aggressive characters, if you will. And so this character was very subdued. And so it was almost difficult for me, but finding her was really fun. So those were my favorite. Okay, now, oh my gosh, favorite villain, female. I can't think of any. Give me some examples. I'm trying to think of.
We've certainly got some very iconic female villains in Resident Evil. We've been very lucky to interview some of the actors that have played those female villains. Yeah. You're putting me on the spot now.
Oh no, what is yours? Then we can have a discussion.
Aaron, female villain?
You already know who she is, Alexia Ashford.
Oh yeah.
That's a good one. That's a very good one. I'm a huge Disney fan, of course, so I love like Ursula and Maleficent and those like boisterous, big, scary women. I'm also a huge Catwoman, but I like the comic book female villains for sure.
Jack keeps calling you. He wants you back in the kitchen.
So that's what I would say. I would say, or Marguerite Baker from Resident Evil 7 Biohazard.
Well, you asked what mine was, and I don't know if you know where I'm coming from. I was thinking of the Wizard of Oz and the Wicked Witch of the West. I hear a little in your performance when there's a line when she screams, "Where are you going, Missy?" And then there's this really evil, insidious laugh that resonates from you during one of the battle scenes with Marguerite, which again kind of almost had sort of, to me, reminiscent of the witch from The Wizard of Oz. I don't know if I'm onto anything there.
No, I love that. I absolutely love that. You know, when we were doing a lot of the laughing scenes, it was kind of, they just wanted different versions. You're probably right. That's probably where I got it, because I'm a huge movie fan and I grew up watching television. So that's probably I just didn't realize that I was stealing her laugh.
Pop Nerd from Seattle asks, did your work on the Troma masterpiece Junk Bonds, The Return of Junk Bucket, prepare you for your role in a cannibalistic backwards family?
And I would say 100% yes. Hilarious, if you ever see it. My dearest friend, Steve Lang, it's from his mind. It's a tribute because he is a horror movie fan, the biggest horror movie fan I've ever met. And he wrote these movies as kind of a tribute to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is his favorite.
You talk about Stephen Lang, the director. This film got many awards. The Audience Award, Seattle True Independent Film Festival, Best Picture. Fright Night Film Fest gave it Best Slasher Film and Best Horror Comedy Feature. Stephen Lang, Best Director as well. So this chap clearly knows what he's doing.
He absolutely does. It is his genre. He owns it. He is so incredibly talented and his brain is insane. And if you ever want to watch a hilarious, gross, funny, and the people in these movies are the best actors in Seattle. He has gathered... I heard a rooster. Yeah. That's amazing.
They're right against the house right now. The best sound effect ever, a chicken in the background while having dinner with Marguerite.
We should have been eating. We should have had some sort of...
Yeah, that would have been great. Don't take this the wrong way, Sarah, but I don't know if I'd have wanted you to cook, though.
No. And you know what? I don't cook anyway, so I'm very...
That's one of the bonus questions we could squeeze in if there was time. Resi Evil Chick 99 wanted to know whether you are a better cook than Marguerite.
Probably not. I'm really good at breakfast foods. I can make eggs and toast and a delicious hash brown, but anything else, I just am not in the mood. Anyway, before the rooster crowed, Junk Bucket is a hysterical romp, and it was actually my first film that I ever did. I had done improv in Seattle with these great people, and Steve Lang was just like, "Hey, I'm making this independent film. Do you want to be in it?" This movie is ridiculous, hilarious, gross. And I, in this movie, play more of like a scream queen. So I didn't get to actually play one of these backwoods characters, but I did get to almost be murdered by one. So it was, it's very much that Texas Chainsaw Massacre homage. This family is disgusting and crazy and murderous. So yes, top nerd of Seattle. It did.
Now, we've come to the end of this very special interview. Sarah, thank you so very, very much. You've devoted so much of your free time to us. You've been so open, well, from the very start of this experience when I first contacted you. These wonderful answers that you've given. Thank you so much, Sara Coates. You've been wonderful. You really brought alive what was such an integral part of the series, such an important and significant one, with this, this return to survival horror roots, which put a bearing and put a significance on the delivery of your lines, which was so wonderful and tied in so well and made that atmosphere. Thank you so much for coming and speaking with us today.
Thank you for having me. This was amazing. And I'm so glad that I can be a part of this game, this genre, that you guys love it so much, because I'm the same. I love zombies. I love horror. And so I just feel so lucky to be able to speak with you guys.
I think I fell asleep.
Well, now, look who has decided to join us.
Wake up and smell the shitty coffee, Zoe.
Lucas.
You okay, dear? There was a lot of excitement from that storm last night.
I'm fine. I had the weirdest dream last night. There was this little girl.
Well, now, after breakfast, Lucas and I are going to have a look around and see if the storm did any damage. You two should have a look around the house.
That's a good idea, Jack. You remember the last hurricane? We thought we were lucky, and the next time it rained, there was a mess for sure.
Hello, sister.
Greetings from the Crimson Head Elder Site Forum, where we've assembled a team of survival horror residents to debate and review the latest instalment in our beloved series, Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. Joining me, George Trevor, we welcome the Loving Zombie from England.
Yeah, that's me, yeah. Hello.
Just across the border in sunny Wales, we have Crimson Elder.
Right, what's up? How's it going?
All the way from Malaysia, we have CT.
Hi.
And all hailing from Raccoon City's very own continent, North America, we have Yoke.
Hey, yeah, I'm worried I'm going to say something really dumb, and it's not like this is going online, am I right, guys?
Jill Sandwich.
Hey, how's it going, everyone?
Albert Wesker 187.
How's it going, guys?
And CC.
Hi.
So, without further delay, we'll go around the team to first discuss our initial thoughts, commencing with Site Administrator Crimson Elder.
I was a bit disappointed. I think it's getting a bit overrated. People's reactions, like, it's as good as remake, I think is total crap. I'd like to maybe give it some time. I think people should give it some time, let it percolate. Like, I think comments like 10 out of 10 and as good as remake is a bit premature. I think the game fell on its ass towards the end, especially the end boss.
Yeah, you don't sound too impressed with it.
No.
Yeah.
No.
You sound quite down on it.
Yeah, I am really down on it. It's like I played it 3 times and I'm done. And that was in the first week. Yeah, 3 times, man. I just don't want to play it again. I just can't find the urge to fucking put it on. Yesterday, I found myself playing Umbrella Corps.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, God.
All the Resident Evil games. How would you do that to yourself?
In a nutshell, I think Umbrella Corps has got a better story.
Oh.
I'm serious. Hear me out. If you had to choose, right, forget everything you know about RE7 and Umbrella Corps. All you've got is a basic, in a nutshell story, right? You've got a game which is about mercenaries researching, gathering data in an infected area, and they report that data back to a company. You've got that game, or you've got a game about a little BOW girl who wants a mammy. What game do you want to play?
Perhaps to counter that review, does anyone else? Yo, can you muster a bit more positivity for the game?
Yeah, I can do a little bit more positivity. I suppose. Going into Resident Evil 7, I was not thrilled to play it. I liked the demo, but some of the things Capcom did with the demo I did not like. On the PlayStation versions, they prevented you from using the dummy finger to actually solve puzzles and that. I was really worried they're going to pull something like that, and I'm glad they didn't.
Everyone thought, what the hell does his finger do?
But
See, I think that's a little dishonest for them to do that. Granted, from a marketing point, that's pretty good because that keeps people talking about it. But
yeah, it was definitely a marketing technique, definitely.
And also the puzzle to get the dirty coin, I thought they were going to do something like that as well, and I'm so glad they didn't get that. I did get spoiled about the ending, and that pissed me off pretty good. So I wasn't looking forward to playing the game, but I think all in all, it's a good game. It's not great. It's no means a great game. It's a good casual Resident Evil game.
Okay, so the loving zombie. Yeah, I can see what the other two chaps are saying. Some valid points there. Personally, I thought the game was good. I thought it had a good creepy atmosphere to it. But I think when it got past the halfway point, must admit, it did get maybe a little less creepier.
I'll let you come back in, Loving Zombie. I just wanted to say I also felt at that stage it almost seemed as if Capcom had lost their bottle. And just in case there wasn't this audience for this return to this, slower pace, they kind of almost felt they had to chuck in this sort of more linear, combat-orientated stage.
Yeah, regarding the combat, I think it was okay. I think some parts, it seemed quite clunky. It was most notable when you fought the first proper boss, with Jack, in that arena. I lost count of how many times I died in that bit.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, this is like getting worse than Dark Souls, the game, Dying so many times, I was getting so frustrated. I mean, I got there eventually, but, yeah. I think he runs just that little bit too slow. I think if he ran a little bit faster, and maybe if there was like a little dodge mechanic, but I suppose that kind of adds, you think, oh crap, I better be careful kind of thing. Mind you, this was the new game engine that they just made as well. From Resident Evil 4 to Resident Evil 6, they used the MT framework game engine, and then for this one, the new one they've done is a brand spanking new one, so... I mean, the visuals are quite good. The graphics, they managed to reach 60 frames per second. So, it's quite smooth gameplay, no frame drops or anything like that. So the environment was quite detailed. The characters are fairly decent as well. It's going to be hard to please everyone. Like, personally, I did really like the game. I mean, I've completed it like 2 times. I'm currently doing like a little speed run. I think if you complete it in under 4 hours, you get fancy weapons, don't you? I think you get like a chainsaw.
That's just a rumor that's fake. It's
sorry, not a chainsaw. It's like a little handsaw thing.
Yeah.
Not even going to attempt Madhouse difficulty. I'm just...
This is Cece. I'm going to have to agree with Crimson Elder.
Oh no.
I was not that impressed. I was actually quite disappointed for a lot of reasons. The nicest thing I can say about the game is it's pretty. It looks nice.
Yeah.
I was disappointed with the limited number of enemies that we faced. Like in the earlier games, you had a huge array of enemies that just came out of everywhere and you never knew where they were coming from. And this one, it was so predictable and it was really limited. I remember when I was in the basement and I was fighting with the molded, I just went on autopilot.
Because you didn't find it challenging enough?
No, it wasn't at all.
I can agree with that. I didn't have much trouble on normal. I didn't even die on my first playthrough. Once.
Right.
I found almost the opposite. One of the things I really enjoyed about the game initially was the fact that the molded, because of the atmosphere and the design of the molded and the way that they moved and the environment that I was in when I was fighting them, I suddenly realized that I was acting like they were harder, a more challenging enemy than they actually were. And I actually enjoyed the fact that when I suddenly woke up to the fact, they actually are a lot easier than I realized, but it was they were so fearsome and the atmosphere was so intense. I messaged Crimson Elder at the time. I said, this is the scariest Resident Evil game I've played since Remake.
No, I agree with you, George. Like, that's honestly the point where I was like, oh, this is maybe a good Resident Evil game. Because before that, I was like, oh, Jack's running around. But fighting the molded, it was pretty hard for me anyway. I did like 10 times down at the basement the first time.
Yeah, me too.
The first time I got a sense that it was a Resident Evil game was when I started doing the fetch quests and stuff, picking up the items. But on my second playthrough, I realized, I'm picking up these keys, and they open like 2 doors each, maximum. And as soon as you move on from that area into like the Lucas area, with all the fucking traps and shit, then it's just a completely different game. It's just switched back to Revelations.
Yeah, Loving Zombie. Yeah, I know what you mean, Crimson and Elder. Yeah, I think when you get to the Lucas point, I think that is the crossing point, isn't it? I've got to agree with CC that I think they didn't really have that many enemies because they only had 2 types of molded, didn't they?
No, there was 4.
Oh, there's 4 molded.
Technically 4.
There's molded, fat molded, bladed molded.
Yeah, the bloaty one. I really found the 4-legged one really annoying now. I was like, found them really irritating.
Yeah.
I played it 3 times through like Crimson Elder did, and I don't have any need to play it again. The story is another aspect that I'll talk about later because I remember messaging GT, I think a couple years ago with a story idea, and they pretty much did that. If you remember that, GT, do you remember?
Oh wow, you've put me on the spot now.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you've always been interested in the psychological aspect.
Well, no, using an embryo as a biological weapon, a human embryo.
Now do you remember?
Yes, Evelyn. I remember.
Can we be a family like before?
No, Evie. We can't be a family. We were never a family. We will never be a family.
Then I don't need you anymore.
Jill Sandwich here. Resident Evil 7, I felt like at the end of playing it, I played it 2 times, I got both of the endings, and I just tried to really take it all in and just see how it kind of, held up the second time around and trying to really get a feel for the new style. It's really hard to talk about RE7 without bringing up the RE6 impact because that really affected the direction of things.
Yeah.
I feel like after that point, and Capcom was in such like a weird dark place. They didn't know what the hell to do with the series. Like they just released like Revelations after RE6, like they put that on 360, and then we were just like, we heard about an open world game, then we heard about like we didn't know what the hell was going on. When I finally like saw how it was, and then I was like, all right, let me wait till I play it. And playing the game, seeing the first person aspect, it worked. It worked for me because it was a different kind of pace as far as like, oh, you're gonna have people chase you, and then they're gonna, you can't really kill them, but then they can kind of come back. It's just, I felt like there wasn't a lot of variety there.
As much as I enjoyed the molded, it was still for me very limited, a missed opportunity that they didn't develop that basic design, because I think that there was real potential there. You're right, they only had the 4 basic ones. Loving Zombie, did you feel that as well, that there was certainly a limitation on the BOWs that we got?
Yeah. Do you know what I think would have been quite cool? When you first went into the house and then you found that list of people and it said either if they were killed or whether they turned. I think what would have been quite cool is that, like Jack was infected and Marguerite was infected, Lucas was infected, and they all had their own personalities. I think it would have been quite cool, say, the people they kidnapped, instead of them just being like, the molded creatures, if they were like their own selves, but except like a different kind of enemy, if you know what I mean. They probably look human, like say Jack or Marguerite do, but except they've probably got like a special ability, like, with Marguerite you can have flies and insects coming out of her, and maybe if he had some different enemies with like maybe different attacks, and you could still have them molded in there. But I thought that was maybe just a missed opportunity.
With this new style of gameplay, if they brought out some really cool BOWs of some sort or just anything, it would have made it a little bit more interesting for me. The enemies, they weren't very good this time around. Taking it to the actual mechanics of the game and like how I experienced it as a whole, with all the keys only opening a few doors, I feel like there could have been a little bit more puzzles, like actual puzzles that you have to like, sit there and really think about. I feel like there could have been a little bit more variety of that. I know they had the little the sections where you would like turn the thing on the picture frame and make it match up, but that's not really like come on, you can do that puzzle in like 30 seconds. The overall story though, I just thought that the story could have been a little bit better. The characters like Ethan and Mia, I kind of remember the Bakers. That was a little highlight for me. I thought they were pretty cool, but I don't really care about Ethan. And I don't care about, I don't care. They don't give me enough to really care about these characters. And that was a big thing for me because, okay, we have these new characters. We don't know who they are. Obviously, they're not, some agents of some sort. Like, it's just a guy that's just going into a house looking for, his wife, following the message and whatnot. So I thought that was unique. But at the same time, yeah, the story just, it could have been a little bit more tight, just making me feel a little bit more of a connection to the characters.
If you're going to bring in new characters like Ethan, you need to establish him, because if he's
exactly
the poster boy now, then I mean, he's not going to put any butts in seats, is he? If they say, oh, Ethan's in Resident Evil 8.
I feel like these characters are just going to be a one and done kind of thing. Playing it as a whole, I'm just like, okay, number one, they definitely put this in first person to sell the VR. I feel like that is like 100% why they pretty much did this, because they have that locked in deal with Sony, a year exclusive for the VR. All that aside, maybe, knowing that, how does it hold up as a Resident Evil game as a whole? I can get some replay value out of it. It definitely could have been a lot better, though, as far as starting something new. But I did enjoy it, though. I didn't think it was a complete letdown. I thought it tried some different things. I do feel like the DLC aspect of it also really bothered me. Number one, I spent $100 and something on the collector's edition and I don't get a season pass. Are you kidding me, Capcom? Are you kidding me? Not to mention, they shipped them out late. Like, I went to go pick it up at midnight, and they were like, oh, yeah, Capcom didn't ship the collector's edition, so we're going to sell you the standard edition of the game. Come back, then we'll give you the refund. It was a joke.
That sounds like a mess.
Yeah, so That's Capcom, I don't know what they were doing here. $30 on a season pass for 3 DLC releases that we apparently are getting, or spend $10 on each. This first one was $10. The next one will probably be $15 or maybe 20. I don't know, because the DLC was cool. Like, I played it, I streamed it. It was fun. Like, you're just trying to escape from a bedroom and stuff with the Bakers playing as Clancy from the demo. But I'm not a fan of the tacked on DLC either, to like reveal more of the story. Just put it on the game. Just put it all in the game.
Does it have any significant effect on the narrative of the main story?
I bought it because I thought it was canon as advertised, but there's so many inconsistencies in the timestamp on the videos. It absolutely is not canon. There's no way you can fit. Clancy plays a role in the game, and his existence in the Baker's residence is 3 hours in total. One of the DLCs has him in the mansion for 5 hours, so that's 2 hours more than he's actually there. And then on top of that, he's in another DLC, which takes place before he even makes it to the Baker's house.
Nightmare, yeah, that's supposed to be like his escape. Like, he has to wait until dawn
He
to
never
leave.
makes it till dawn. He enters the house at 10:30 in the night, and he dies at 1 a.m. in the morning. That's like 3 hours later, right? And according to the timestamp, bedroom takes place at 4 p.m. So either Clancy entered the house and then escaped from Marguerite, then met up with the sewer gators, and thought, oh, I won't tell them about what just fucking happened with Marguerite. Let's just go in and I'll pretend like nothing happened. It's bollocks. How can he make such a fucking error?
The point that was made earlier that Ethan doesn't feel like a character to progress forward with the series, I completely agree with. So it's a shame that actually the DLC wasn't used to open up a little bit more about Ethan and Mia's relationship, or just Ethan as a character.
The reason why it doesn't connect and doesn't make sense is just shows you that it's DLC for the sake of being DLC. It's just, it doesn't matter. It's like, oh, well, Resident Evil fans will buy it. It's more content. And it's especially because it was released a week after the initial release. Like, really? Like, at least like Lost in Nightmares and Desperate Escape was like half a year.
Lost in Nightmares and Desperate Escape are two of the best DLC packages I think they've ever come with any Resident Evil game. They're fantastic.
Oh yeah, they're really fun. Still fun to this day, playing like the remasters and stuff. It still holds up, so it's cool. They got it all together in one package.
Albert Wesker 187, you've been extremely patient. We come to you now and your initial thoughts.
Albert Wesker 187. I'm from Crimson Head Elder. I'm playing the game on PS4, and the version I have is a standard edition. My initial thoughts on Resident Evil 7 is that Capcom outdid themselves in this game. They did an excellent job with the game. I was really impressed with everything of the story. I just loved every aspect of it, the survival horror aspect of it. Being chased by Jack Baker kind of reminds you of Nemesis in Resident Evil 3. I also ended up liking also the fact that they put a first-person perspective instead, which is something I've always wanted to see in a Resident Evil game. I also like the fact also that they even though they introduced a new character, I still like the fact that he was a really good character in the game. To top it off, I mean, it was just an excellent game. I mean, I rate it up there as one of my favorite Resident Evil games out there. As of right now, I'm on my 4th playthrough already of Resident Evil 7. I'm enjoying every aspect, especially the ship part where it's really scary, where you have to deal with the molded. Kind of reminds you of Revelations a little bit. I mean, the game was extraordinary, and I think Capcom outdid themselves, and they proved to a lot of people that they can do survival horror correctly.
George Trevor here. I agree with every word of Albert Wesker 187, although I agree with a lot of what Jill Sandwich was saying. A lot of my review is affected by how starved I've been of this experience. It's been such a long time. I've been moaning on the forums for the last 10 years that, survival horror's died and Capcom haven't been producing anything like the intensity of remake. So for me, it was a real welcome return, like Albert Wesker says, a real welcome return to how I think Resident Evil should be. I just thought so many of the areas, the atmosphere for me was so strong.
I did like that aspect.
The way the molded came out of the wall. I know obviously it's been done in Alien, but I absolutely loved that. The molded themselves, for me, were very tense, and as I was saying, they almost felt like they were more fearsome than they actually were, just because of the atmosphere. I liked the return to puzzles. Jill Sandwich is right. They weren't particularly demanding, but still, I think these are the most demanding puzzles we've had since Resident Evil 3.
I agree.
In 4, 5, and 6, we've literally had, you find a key at one end of the corridor and you've got to put it in the door at the other end of the corridor.
Yeah.
I think the fact that, for example, with the birthday puzzle, the fact that you had to work out not to pull the thing out of the barrel to make the accelerant come out, that's probably the most intellectually taxing puzzle we've had for some time. I'm going to be very interested to see what the sales figures are and whether there is a market for this, because it's clearly, with its faults, it's clearly taken a step right back towards the survival horror.
Albert Wesker 187 again. They had that Resident Evil 3 feeling, being chased by nemesis, but also the fact that you can create enhanced gun ammo like you could in Resident Evil 3 is another aspect. Yeah, I loved it too. That's what I loved about it.
You get the strategy of deciding for yourself what you think's the best weapon or the best ammo to use.
Yes, exactly. Enhanced ammo was outstanding. I mean, the puzzles were good. The fact that you had to go all the way back to the house to solve one puzzle, the fact you had to get the dog hit on the clock to go get over here to get the pendulum, just the mixture of it was just incredible. I mean, I loved the Resident Evil 7. That's why I keep going back to it every time, because I enjoyed every single aspect of the game. It was beautifully made, and Capcom outdid themselves in this game.
Loving Zombie 8. What kind of annoyed me as well, like I was looking forward to killing Lucas, and then he disappeared. I thought, where the hell did he go?
I don't know who that somebody is, but he was sending messages to someone about what was going on at the house. Yeah.
Yeah, I did a little bit of reading. Apparently he was keeping in touch with another organization. So the opposing organization of that Umbrella Corps.
With how the game made references to the other games, I did like that. It made me happy because it made me just see the fact that this is still in the Resident Evil universe despite it being so different, and it feels very different.
We had Clive O'Brien's book,
The Unveiled Abyss.
We had Alicia Ashcroft's little news report.
That was beautiful, bringing those characters back. I mean, it was something awesome. It was unbelievable when I saw this. I was like, holy crap, this is unbelievable. They're going back to Revelations and Outbreak.
Yeah.
One that I particularly enjoyed, although I don't know who the fuck Chamberlain thinks he is, but there was a little invoice to Jack Baker for the shadow puzzles that had been installed in
Trevor and Chamberlain, yeah. Maybe. See, what you don't know is at the end of Resident Evil 6, that was Ada's greatest creation, cloning George Trevor.
Yes.
The dude needs to just stop making secret rooms. That's all I'm going to say.
Let me interject here because I do have the dates in front of me. And shame on you, GT, for not realizing this. The date was November 10th, 1992 through November 30th, 1992. Now, November 10th through November 30th marks the tragedy of the Trevor family.
The years are out, but you mean they've got the same dates?
Yes, they have the same month and date.
Well spotted, CC. Oh, wow.
Good job, CC. Good job.
Did you guys appreciate the saving mechanic and the item boxes again that we got?
Yeah, I love that. I love the fact that Capcom brought back the storage boxes to have that really calm, peaceful, saving room music. I mean, just that old school feel of it just was nostalgic.
Because that brings a whole gaming mechanic to it. Like, it's, you got to store your items and stuff, but the save things, it's just the way of saving the game. You might as well press pause. Why didn't they put the tapes on normal? Every time I want to use tapes, I gotta play fucking Madhouse.
I was under the impression where if you didn't save on the tape recorder, even just on normal, it won't save your progress at all.
Crimson Elder, are you making the point that on easy and normal mode, despite having the tape recorders, it also auto-saves?
Well, yeah, and if you play on Madhouse, you need little cassette tapes.
You need those cassette
to save
tapes,
the game, yeah.
It's not as bad as you think it is. The tapes are not really spread out a whole lot, so you usually have a pretty good amount of them. when I was just wanting to quit, I would just save. So I don't know if having the tapes would even really do anything for the game.
I have not played Madhouse yet. I haven't even been able to pass the game in under 4 hours yet playing on easy. I barely passed it earlier in 5 hours and 20 minutes. So I'm still not ready to get into Madhouse yet. I mean, I can't even pass the game in under 4 hours in freaking easy.
We've been joined by CT, who's so kindly got up very early in Malaysia.
Hi, I'm doing fine. I just woke up. Hello, everyone.
We've just been going through what our thoughts were of the game. What did you think?
It's quite exciting. The gameplay, I kind of like it. Before the game came out, I was one of the majority of people that don't really fancy the whole first-person shooter gameplay. So when the trailer came out, when the demo came out as well, it was like first person. I was a bit upset and also disappointed. Looks like Silent Hill now. My God, why has it turned into something so different? It's something that I've never seen before coming from Resident Evil. But I love the suspense building in the game. It's what Resident Evil has missing for so many years now. And they brought it back, fortunately, and I really love that.
I must say to you, as someone invested in Resident Evil as a third-person fixed camera angle game, I adored the backdrops, the static, really beautiful, lush, almost like paintings, and was absolutely devastated by Resident Evil 4. It's first person with someone's back in the way. You don't get the full character model like you did with Lost in Nightmares when you get the option of doing a proper third-person perspective. Almost for me, it could have been the last nail in the coffin, the first-person view. And I have to say to you, CT, because of that atmosphere that you mentioned and that you noticed and how creepy it was and how much it's returning back to its roots, I didn't notice the first person in the sense that it wasn't an obstacle for me. Although I got terrible motion sickness playing the VR version, I've got the Xbox One version, and just everything about this game, the atmosphere, the pace, the environment, with a limited range of enemies, still the enemies and the way they're molded, are designed, and the way they come out of the ceiling, and the darkness and the light, and the stripped back sounds. It was just fantastic, and I didn't notice the first person at all.
I want to capitalize on that as well. The first game that had the first-person view that I really enjoyed was Resident Evil Dead Aim. And then the next game after that, they ended up doing the first-person view was Revelations in the 3DS version, and I really enjoyed that. So when they made this game first-person perspective, that's why I loved it so much, because it reminded me of that Dead Aim and Revelations gameplay in the 3DS when you get into the first-person view, which is incredible.
It's interesting you mentioned Dead Aim, because I wanted to ask everyone else, if anyone else here like myself is a huge fan of Dead Aim, and whether they felt like I did, that the latter sections on the boat very much kind of felt like a Dead Aim reimagining, and I think it's a great environment to have for a survival horror game. One of the things I enjoyed from the boat section, albeit that it was a little bit more linear.
I got that feeling with that game. Oh my God, they did this for Dead Aim, which is one of my favorite games of the series. I am so happy they made this in first-person perspective. Then they put it in a boat like Dead Aim and Revelations. I was like, Capcom. Like I said, you all did yourselves in this game, which is freaking incredible.
It's full of suspense. Like, wow, this is like, I don't know, Resident Evil has become, like, they gave them a rebirth. And I thought it would have nothing to do with the previous storyline. I thought they were really making a new one, but then I was wrong. I think it was Redfield. I don't know if it was Chris. People are still debating about that, whether it was Chris or whether it was like a clone or whether it was like Chris's son.
People said it was Hunk.
But yeah, people say it was Hung as well.
I think he's a bit too young to be Hung.
We really know nothing about these characters. For 20 years, we've been following this. And we don't even know if Chris got a brother. We didn't know Albert Wesker had nuts to make a son. We don't know these things. After 20 years, you think you'd fucking know.
That's why this is a bad twist.
That's why it's just going to get away with so much bullshit. Retcon.
Hey, you can't get as bad as the final chapter with Dr. Isaac's clones, okay?
Hey, that was good. That was good.
Predictive combat software. Good. Oh, Jesus. When I saw predictive combat software, I lost my shit in the movie theater. I was done. I was like, predictive combat software? Really?
Didn't Wesker get his ass kicked by a doll?
Yeah. And Wesker gets stopped by a door. He's like, help, I'm bleeding out.
Wesker does not beg for his life. They screwed that up. Wesker's got too much pride. He's not going to beg, save me.
They made him a villain in the last one. In this one, he gets stopped by a door, and he's just sitting there.
Yeah, I was joking with my buddies in the theaters, like, Westworld got up, hobbled over someone, and choked the fuck out of somebody.
You guys need to watch the Angry Joe review. Hilarious.
They make Albert Wesker an alcoholic.
He does the whole movie. he sits there with a glass and ice in his, he's just like, I'm just gonna drink this, and
If
that's
I had
it.
superpowers and I was alone with the AI, I would be drinking too.
That's true. Or if I was on the set of that movie, I'd probably be drinking.
Paul Anderson has invaded this podcast. He's like the molded. He's coming out of the ceiling. Like Paul Anderson is Evie, and he's working into your minds.
He finds his way in the
movies.
podcast.
I mean, can you imagine fighting a drunk Wesker in a Resident Evil game? It's not gonna go well.
Hilarious.
That would be amazing.
Oh, Riz, where are you?
Can I just throw my 2 cents in you? If you take away anything I've got to say tonight, everybody keeps saying it's a return to survival horror. Is it really?
It's
I mean,
casual. It's a casual
RE6,
return.
Any fucking thing is a return to survival horror. If this game came out after remake, would you be feeling the same fucking way? I don't think so.
I reckon it's got similarities to a game called Outlast, which when the demo came out, a lot of people did compare it to Outlast because at first you're hiding from Jack. In Outlast the game, you do a lot of hiding, don't you?
You can't defend yourself. It makes you go on the run and hide.
But Outlast is a bad game, though. To me, it's different.
I feel like it's different as well.
Yeah, there's similarities, but to me, it's different enough where it doesn't bug me. Honestly, that's why I play like this brand of like horrors, because I can fight back. It's the definition of survival horror is fighting the horror.
You felt it was a casual return, half-hearted, or
it's not enough for like fans like us. But I have 4 buddies that finally got back to the Resident Evil series that hasn't played since 4. They play this like, oh yeah, I remember this from like Resident Evil 1 and stuff like that on PlayStation 1. They're like happy about it.
What you brought up, the point about the casual people, and it also caters to the fact that it is first person, and the first person horror scare cam kind of deal, and that adds to it because they're sending out review copies, they're sending out streaming copies, so everybody can scream and yell, shove it down your throat. They're wearing the VR. You're like, this guy looks ridiculous, whatever. So you're seeing all this stuff. The guy's screaming, yelling. It captures that audience. So people just see Resident Evil 7 and are like, oh, what's this game? And then they end up playing it, and they like it because maybe their favorite YouTuber played it, or they like it maybe because... And so that's fine, because it brings in a different audience. But I think that's another reason why the game sold very well. That helped it grow. Even though the first person did work for me, like I said, in many aspects, but I feel like that whole like VR casual thing was like, all right, well, let's do first person because of this, and this will kind of get people on board. Not too big of a fan of that. Rather than having like a little bit more appealing of a story or characters to kind of bring people in, they have to use VR and first person kind of to use it. And it's not, like I said, it's not like the first person is bad, but I felt like that when you mentioned the casual audience and stuff, that seeing other reactions is really where you can get that like study from, where it's like, oh, okay, this is how it's kind of how people are reacting to a new Resident Evil that's trying to pretty much get a new identity from the public.
Metacritic out of 100, PC at 88, PS4 at 85, Xbox One at 86, and then you got magazines and stuff. You got Destructor, give it a 10 out of 10. What the fuck? EGM.
Perfect.
EGM, give it a 9 out of 10. 36 out of 40 for Mitsugive, and they give 38 out of 40 to RE6, so their opinion means shit. Game Informer, 8.5 out of 10. GameSpot, 8 out of 10. Games Radar, 4.5 out of 5. This is the review that I actually mostly agree with. IGN give it a 7.7 out of 10. PC Gamer, 90 out of 100, and Polygon, 9 out of 10. But then, let me just talk about the sales then. We look at the sales, right? In the first week, it did 2.5 million on launch week. That was taken on January 27th. It was the 3rd best-selling Resident Evil game in the series. 3rd. RE6 was 4 million, and RE5 was 5 million.
RE6 outdid it by double.
Yeah, and Resident Evil 5 blitzed it. In Japan as well, it's doing really bad. It sold 187,000 compared to RE5's 319,000, and RE6's 634,000. And also Capcom's share prices have dropped.
Now that's concerning, because you would have thought a game particularly in that style with a lot of sort of Japanese horror tropes that it would do particularly well in Japan.
Oh man, it got blitzed over 3 times as much, RE6 had. We can look at the reviews and you can say it's better than Res 5, but we can also look at the fucking sales, and we know one there, George.
CT, what's the news in Malaysia? How's it doing over there where you are?
Well, me and my friend, we are huge fans of Resident Evil. So when we found out that Resident Evil 7 gonna come out, we're so hyped about it. So what my friend did, she did play the demo, and then she told me that she was disappointed. Probably it wasn't as great as the previous Resident Evil, which was the Resident Evil 4 and 5. I don't know, maybe I have to spend time with another group of friends, maybe. Because, maybe they don't really play PlayStation, or they're not really gamers. So yeah, I'm the only one who's getting very hyped, and me and my friend. And so when we found out that the full playthrough came out, we watched it, and we just thought, wow, it's very different, but it's okay-ish. But I don't know, I have a mixed feeling about this one. It seems so different. I really cannot see how it has anything to do with the previous one. Yeah, can I ask you people, does it really have anything to do with the previous storyline?
It takes place 5 years after Resident Evil 6.
For me, the story matched the gameplay. I felt that it was original enough without it being ridiculous. I think we've had far worse narratives before, with far more sort of illogical plot points or antagonists behaving in some very questionable ways. I thought it had one of the more intelligent stories that we've had, and so it generally had that very creepy and tense context to put the gameplay in.
Real fast, George, that is a proper twist. The whole, just to get mad a little bit, the whole, oh hey, Redfield's working with Umbrella thing, if it is Chris, that's not a good twist. The Evelyn thing, all these pieces pretty much showing that, oh yeah, this is a weapon. But then it's like, oh, here's some things that show it could not be a weapon. You get that picture with E-001. Then you get, all these kid rooms. So it's like, oh, well, what's going on here? But with the Chris thing, that is just out of nowhere. That's not a good twist.
Loving Zombie, what was your thoughts on the narrative?
I could see there was similarities to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think they definitely took some cues from that. I think, like, when you're at the dinner table. Memorable characters wise, I think Jack's certainly memorable. Marguerite's got a bit of a potty mouth. They could have maybe expanded on Ethan, because I don't think they really expanded on Ethan enough. I mean, I thought the story was decent, and I did think like the twist was good for Evelyn. Like everyone else, I was really confused at the end with the Redfield thing. I thought, I really am not convinced about that.
For me, that Redfield thing at the end, it was almost like, when you get a film and you think it's finished, and then after the rolling credits, you just get like a jokey, almost, throwaway little extra bit.
Yeah, it's cheap.
Yeah. It doesn't have any real bearing on any of the story of Resident Evil 7. It's perhaps the start of Resident Evil 8.
I'm Redfield. I'm glad we found you.
The fuck took you guys so long?
Loving Zombie brings up a point we've all said, that we find the Ethan character like a placeholder. We don't get to know enough about him. With it also being first person, that the idea is they didn't actually want to make that character particularly distinguishable, so that you can put your own imprint on it, so you effectively feel that Ethan is yourself.
Was anyone shocked when his hand got chainsawed off?
Yeah.
At first I was like,
am I going to have to go through the whole game with this? I was seriously thinking, how the hell am I going to progress through this game?
I picked it up because I was like, this could be for a puzzle.
No, I picked it up because I felt bad for the guy. I was like, you know what? I ain't gonna leave your hand there hanging all by itself. Like cousin Adam's Family, the hand. I was like, no, I'm gonna pick it up and take it with me.
They've done it so we can relate to Ethan, and I mean, who can't? I can relate to Ethan. I mean, can't you? It was just last week that my missus chopped my arm off with a chainsaw. Of course, I can relate to him.
I can't relate to him at all. If this maybe shows how bad of a person I am. But if I'm trying to find my wife that's missing, and I see cow parts and saw blades outside this creepy plantation, I'm going the other way. I'm just going to cut my losses.
The choice, you go on to find your wife, and you're given the option: do I save my wife? Or do I save this fucking random girl I just met? What kind of choice is that?
Has anyone here saved Zoe just to see the difference in the endings? Because
Oh God.
I did
Okay.
for achievements.
I have a confession. When I first played the first playthrough of Resident Evil 7, I ended up saving Zoe because she helped me out throughout the game. Little did I know that was the bad ending, and what I did learn though is that she was already far gone. She was far gone already
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
For me, Resident Evil 7 was doing quite well and being quite stable, and you didn't have these sort of illogical occurrences. But yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, that made no sense at all.
I think that would have been better if you found out Evelyn was just controlling Zoe, just like a kid joke on you.
Right
Like,
at the end.
I like the fact when you save Zoe that after you save Zoe, they do that sound like Mia can't believe you did that. And then when you have to kill her towards the end of the game, he's like, "Did you have fun with that fucking slut?"
See, I chose Zoe the first time around simply because I thought
Mia was just insane.
Like Crimson Elder mentions, this is such a dumb choice. It must be a twist. It must be something more that she can do for you. I mean, actually, it's interesting. You get in the dialogue, she's going to be more useful in helping us get through this. Then I can come back to you. I mean, that's a pretty lame excuse, you know.
Yeah, I know.
Zoe gives
knows he screwed up
for that. She's not buying that.
I just went with Mia because I knew Mia was the good ending. I had no connection to either characters, as bad as that sounds.
Mia, you put me through so much. I came all this way, dealt with Jack, dealt with all this. Like, I'm saving you. Like, who cares about Zoe? That was my mindset.
Even though Mia did everything, like that, she cut Ethan's arm off and all this other stuff.
Stabbed him multiple times.
Stabbed him multiple times. This just proves that Ethan had unconditional love for his wife. So despite everything she did for him, everything she did to him, he says, "I still love you, and I'm still gonna save you because I love you that much." So that's what that
did for Jill in RE5. I mean, she attacked him. He didn't fucking abandon her and say, "Oh, fuck you."
Am I the only one that shot Jill first time in that boss fight? I blew her head off. I'm sorry. That's what I did. In my head, I was okay. You're already going on a rampage like the Bakers. If I inject you, you're dead anyway. Zoe hasn't done anything to me.
It's a shame that choosing Zoe doesn't give more, even with it being a bad ending, it just doesn't give more of a better bad ending.
It is a sad ending, though. Either way you look at it. Even the good ending, I just look at it as damned if you do, damned if you don't, pretty much.
Yeah,
Save
exactly.
Mia, you're still with Umbrella. Granted, it does that dumbass happy music like it's all good, which I don't know about that.
I just wanted to ask Cece and Crimson Elder as two sort of the strongest detractors of the game. Did you not see any merit or enjoy part of the story where you had Evelyn getting to the point where you had that twist with her being elderly at the end? I thought it was quite harrowing. Why does nobody love me? I thought the voice acting was fantastic.
I already had that figured out. In fact, I scribbled notes from the trailer. I watched the trailer repeatedly and listened to the song, Go Tell Aunt Rhody, and I made notes about how it seemed to deal with a child that felt abandoned, unwanted. There was underlying tones of tragedy. I figured out that the young girl and the old lady were the same person. I had a feeling they were the same person.
Yeah, I had a feeling. I just kind of went with my instinct as well, though. It's like if everything else fails, blame the elderly.
I like that twist too, that Marguerite was Evelyn the whole time, and it was weird that she would appear in main points of the game. Like you have to go to this room, she was there. You have to go to the dissection room, she was there. You have to go to the room, she was there. Like it's like if she was leading you, telling you, go to this area. There's something in this area that's right here. Every time
I'm worried that Crimson Elder particularly is going to jump down my throat because I know you play a lot of horror games. Put Resident Evil 7 in a context to those with jump scares, but my God, I mean, I completely freaked out. It was frightening when you come around the corner after you come back out of the basement and she's just there. And I was watching it with my 16-year-old son, who has spent literally since he was 6, has spent the last 10 years taking the piss out of my devotion for Resident Evil. And this is the first Resident Evil game. That's interesting. He's 16. He's a new generation of gamers to Resident Evil. Him and his friends, this is the first Resident Evil game they're playing. He was terrified. He looked round the corner and she had gone, and I literally grabbed his arm and we were screaming. I'm sorry. It was frightening. Go on, Crimson Elder, you can now destroy me and tell me that it was just a cheap jump scare. For me, that was one of the highlights of the game and really added to how scary and how sinister it was.
I think that actually hurt the game a little bit more because you couldn't do anything to her.
Maybe I'm just numb to it. I didn't really sense. Once she was sitting in the wheelchair in the boiler room and you just walk around the corner, she just sat there. I was like, okay, you fucking creepy bitch. And
yes.
The second time was when I fought Marguerite and you're walking up the stairs, is just about to fight down. She burst through the window and grabbed me. And I was like, oh, you fucking bitch. She had me good.
There's no
surprised.
handy-capable stairs in that place, so
Yeah.
that'd be hilarious. Just see just something like shifting up and just walking up the steps. It's like, okay.
Well, there was no standard stair lift, was there?
That woman is athletic.
The extra abilities and physical abilities that Evelyn had as a child, as part of the deterioration as she was growing older, that those would have gone as well.
She actually, when you're talking about her moving around and stuff, USS Command said that after he got the 2 key cards, he was about to clock out to go to Lucas area. He revisited underneath the floorboards where Jack chases her around the dinner, round by the family dinner part, and she was actually under there.
Oh my god, that would freak me out.
One possible explanation for all this is there's no doubt Ethan is infected. He handled his arm getting cut off pretty well. So him seeing her is probably just him hallucinating.
When I saw his hand get back, I was like, I just assumed, I was like, maybe he is infected, because how the hell, unless they're, and then I got the scene where it happened with my leg. Like, I got my leg cut off by, I guess it was in combat, and
From Jack Baker.
Yeah, Jack Baker.
And he has like the first aid spray,
yeah,
and
and
you have to put your leg on.
I put my leg on with the thing, and I was like, this is fucked up in a good way. I was like, this is kind of cool. Like, this could be something different here, but then they never explained shit.
Well,
so.
because you're right, because they don't in this game explain how, because you're right to question, was he infected? And the only evidence that he is you're right, is the fact that you can reattach limbs, which for some of us, like me, for example, when I didn't put the hand on initially and I only saw in the cutscene when it was reattached, and you're kind of thinking, well, hold on a minute, have they now infected him was he infected as part of that rehabilitation? In order to cure him, they had to infect him, because up to that moment, is he infected during the battle with Mia? It's not quite clear how you do become infected.
The cocoon, when you crash and you get taken onto the boat, that's when he must have got infected, because before that point, he never had any hallucinations or nothing.
How then do you account for the reattachment of the limbs?
Why didn't he have any hallucinations up until that point? If he
It's been a while since I looked at the ending file, but isn't there a file that shows you the different stages? Stage 1 was the
hallucinations.
Stage 2 was hallucinations, wasn't it? Stage 1 was like regen.
Yeah. The hallucinations were at a latter stage, just almost before complete deteration, or
because it gets worse towards the end. Yeah.
Let me see, which is the part where I can actually recall when he got infected. I want to say it's when you fight against Mia the first time, but
going that water probably was not a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's actually quite interesting. I thought he may have been infected when Jack takes you the first time. Maybe Jack took him, and while he was unconscious, he probably injected him with the virus. That's why when Zoe ends up putting his arm back together, Ethan doesn't feel shit.
The point of bringing these kidnappees into the family and to control them, you're infecting them in order for Evelyn to get the full control and to obviously persuade them to be part of the family. So the people that are being kidnapped, they're being infected upon incarceration. So I imagine a similar thing that occurred to Ethan as soon as he was captured by Jack. He was infected as well, like the people that they kidnap. The whole point of Ethan's presence there was through Evelyn. Mia, in her true self, she wants Ethan to stay away. But then there's that email that she, I think one of the first files is the email asking Ethan to come and join her, presumably is done through Evelyn with her mind control.
So Evelyn already chose Ethan to be part of the family. That's why she was at dinner with him.
I found a file. It is the initial infection stage. They state that test subjects, once they had arms and legs removed, were able to coapt the amputated limb in a matter of minutes. That is during the initial infection. So I think when Ethan got his hand cut off, he was initially infected.
But those herbs are crazy.
Or the psychostimulants that you were taking could have lowered his...
Steroids, man. That's how that works.
I wanted to also add on the narrative of the game. You see that Jack Baker is a freaking masochist. But what really got me into the characters is the way they actually really were, how Jack was in real life, how he was a really nice person, how he was a hold on, son, hold on. Like he was really, really passive.
Ethan? Hey, shh, I know. I'm not gonna hurt you. Hell, I never would have if I could have helped it.
What do you mean?
I'm no killer, son. Neither is Marguerite, nor my boy Lucas, or even Zoe here. That girl Evelyn, she did this.
What the hell is she? Now, what did she do to you?
She infected us with her gift. That's what she calls it. I found her near a busted-out tanker in the bayou. Everything changed after that.
So she infects you and then she takes control?
No. Not exactly, son. She just... She forces her way into your mind, your soul. You can't fight back. You are connected to her, and you can't resist the urge to... Oh, you're a different person after that.
Just like Mia. So Mia sent me that message because of Evelyn.
Listen, the girl just wants a family of her own. She's the key. All right? You find her, and you stop her. Ethan. Free my family. Please.
Jack was very, very nice. He loved his family. He was a Marine who served in. He was a Marine from the 1980. I mean, just the way he was as a person compared to the sociopath we see in the game and the real person we see was a huge difference. He tells Ethan, "Please save my family, please."
Was holding the hand of the gamer, telling them what was going on, but at the same time, I think it was an emotional window into the Bakers, and as Albert Wesker says, it showed us what they were like before. It went, I think, nicely hand in hand with some of the files, the little things that you find that gives you inclinations what their previous life was like, and you see that Jack was a Marine, which I think goes quite nicely in his fighting mode, because he's a fucking tough bastard. I enjoyed some of the moves he put on you. They weren't your usual moves that you sometimes see. He did have quite a, I don't know if that's a southern style, but he had quite a style to his fight when he's beating up on you.
He was almost like an MMA fighter. He was doing like clinches, knee to the face, knee to the gut. It was like, whoa, what the fuck?
Trust me, I'm one of those too, and I'm telling you, that's for the training that we get. Trust me. You're taught to hit with authority. You're taught to hit with your knee, with your elbow, close quarter combat. They teach you all that stuff there. So I'm telling you, that was very legit because he was extremely freaking strong. And I also like the fact how Jack reacts to you. He's like, "Oh, you gone done it now, motherfucker." It's like, what?
Jack Baker is legendary.
Yeah, man. And then when he's riding inside the car, that he drives the car with you,
Nice
you keep
car,
running over
Ethan.
him. And
I also like the
yeah.
fact that there's different ways that scene can play out depending on what you do.
I've never had
And-
my leg cut off.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's very different, and taking away different things and finding everything out is what I personally enjoyed. I did have issues with the story, certain characters and whatnot, but the overall, like, the way I played through the game and saw the characters kind of unravel and see things from different perspectives. I like the fact that, we definitely are seeing new elements because we are thrown in a whole different new, environment. I did like that it was very dark. I like the fact that there was no censored cutscenes. I was tired of censored deaths. Ever since 5 and 6, they kept censoring the deaths, and I was like, stop doing that. I want to see gore. I want to see decapitate. Like, I want to see it, Because like RE4, like the deaths were fucking awesome. They were brutal. Like the insects and stuff. That was one of my favorite kills with this, like Leon's face melting all. Like, that's cool. Like, that's dark. I think it takes some thought. I just think in like RE5 when the chainsaw guy just kind of like cuts into your neck and then you fall down. It's a minor nitpick of mine, but certain things like that I was like, eh. But I was happy that they, brought it back in 7. They brought back the gruesomeness of it.
Did you guys find that some of these loading times were insanely long and unfortunately and occasionally completely took away from the tension?
Why not put a fucking file or something? Jesus, I'm just sitting there just looking at it and there's nothing.
Did you guys find that as well, very long loading times?
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
My only issues with the loading screen is it tells you certain puzzles, like how to get the shotgun. Oh, you have the scorpion key. You can get the shotgun now. Oh, Immortal Jack. Try not shooting him. Like that kind of stuff.
You're right. It would be much
History or
better rather
something.
than to make it even easier to actually just have had some files during that time. That was one of the things I loved about Resident Evil 5, that you had the timeline.
It doesn't help that like my PS now obviously Sony is doing this on purpose because they want me to get a Slim and a Pro, but my PS4 sounds like it's dying when it plays this game. If it tries to play Uncharted 4 or Last of Us, it just sounds like a vacuum is on. And I was like, okay, I'm not like, so like the load times were even like longer for me, and like sometimes my console would overheat
and turn off the game because the PS4 literally says this is too hot. The console needs to turn off. Like, yeah, it's too good.
Wow, that is cool.
So when certain things would happen or a cutscene, like you would just hear zzz, like it's just slowly. I'm like, what is going on? Like, can I even play? Am I not meant to play this game? Like,
That's
am I
why you
supposed
get
to
an
stop right
Xbox. I wanted to go through the panel and ask you guys what you thought of the files. What's really induced atmosphere and sort of cemented the history and the feeling that you're connecting with a game. I've heard some criticism that people that have found the files a bit one-dimensional. That was my criticism for Revelations 2. I'm a Revelations 2 fan. I much prefer Resident Evil 7, but I felt that some of the files in Revelations 2 were a little bit bland. I really liked the files in Resident Evil 7. We start with the email from Mir. It's dated July 18th, 2017. At this point, Evelyn is effectively, I think, in that elderly lady state. One highlights for me and was really in the vein of Resident Evil and just the really insidious and creepy and sinister atmosphere that almost makes it a ghost story. Resident Evil's based on Sweet Home, which is a Japanese ghost story. Lucas, who was a bad seed before Evelyn got her claws into him, who locks his friend Oliver in the attic.
Oh, yeah, and she can't hear her screams anymore.
Oh, that decomposed child. Those files for me were just fantastic. And they go with the fact, that's what I've always loved, that they connect with a part of the gameplay that then, because when I first found that child, me and my son, and again, we were like, oh my, what the fuck is that? And we were just staring at the screen, just horrified, and it's like a freak show. You don't want to look at it, but it was so. And I was loving that Resident Evil was finally going back to being so creepy and nasty. And then finding those files alert you to exactly who that child was and what his fate was, and then it just becomes so gruesome.
Yes.
When I played it the first time, I missed like 3 files. I missed like 3 of them because I was really trying to find everyone, just read and get as much information out of it as I possibly can. Just my first time through. I really did like the attic thing and how I could still hear banging, and then that's you keep hearing banging. You're like, what the hell is that sound? And then later come to find out all the stuff in the attic. That was cool. I also like the with the missing words. That one was pretty crazy because you're reading it and you're like, what is this? Like, you're seeing all these connections.
What is those files that are blanked out?
Like,
what are those files that are blanked out?
reference, like Africa, Arkley Mount, like. This is really cool because, again, I appreciated when they reference the other games. So when I read the files and I see that, I kind of smile a bit. I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like, I kind of feel a connection considering that's what I was looking for when playing this game. I wanted to see how it really felt, connected to this universe and how well they did it. So I paid attention to that. And yeah, I thought the files were pretty good. I did enjoy reading them. Those were some of my favorites personally.
Yes. I was going to bring that up too. Yeah.
The R&D report 1 and 2, they are the best ones. The censor thing though, that really pissed me off.
Yeah, me too. I was wondering, what the hell does it say there? Why are you blanking it out? Why?
It made you think, like what could fill in these blanks here? Like,
but it's not a word.
But that's so Resident Evil, isn't it? Just the frustration.
Yes,
we had that in Resident Evil 0, not being able to put the puzzle together completely because there's certain dates that are missing from files. And that's great, the investigation and having to put it all together like that.
Imagine we don't get any answers for that. That is just fucking...
Yeah, I have to agree with that. With Resident Evil 0, you're able to have an idea. Here with that file, oh hey, it talks about the HCF. That's freaking amazing. Then everything else is blacked out. Just say the fucking FBC if it's there. Please, just give us something. One file saying that, Marguerite Baker went to the doctors and they're like, hey, this mold that we found on you, it's something serious. You need to come back.
What about the teeth that you find? That was kind of screwed up to the teeth that you find.
I thought that was actually one of the few things I liked about that is during the happy birthday puzzle, you see an old Baker picture. You see the real grandma Baker. You see everyone being kind of happy. And I guess you see Oliver and Zoe in the back. I thought it was kind of neat. Yeah, nothing happens with the mold at the hospital. You get a little bit about the storm, which must have been horrible for a tanker to wind up that far on shore.
They were moving Evelyn because they were being pursued by rival companies. So it's interesting. We're not quite sure. Was the tanker steered off course by the storm? Was it by the ship being under attack?
I think it's supposed to go to Central America, somewhere in Central America. Like there's a picture at the end of the credits that shows its course, and you see an X where it got attacked.
She was being transported to Central America because rival companies, not the rival company, but other companies were
They
trying.
were worried about being attacked, but they
were trying
oddly
to
enough
steal
get
them.
attacked.
Can I expand on the doctor's note? I have a problem with this file due to my medical background. First of all, doctors never ever send out a letter telling you what exactly is wrong. They will tell you that they found an anomaly and you need to come in for further testing. From x-rays, you cannot tell that it is fungus or mold. That is something that requires a biopsy.
Well, it's not a really good, doctor. It's just like, kind of a town doctor. He drinks a lot. He's cheap. It's fine. Not a whole lot of files from Zoe. That's another issue I had.
No, she seemed to have a good amount of history with what's going on.
We know why Lucas frees himself from his attachment to Evelyn. We've got the emails that he has with this company. It works actually quite well as a commentary on Evelyn and her living environment with the Bakers and how things are developing. He references the fact that she's growing older and also this desire for a family. I was a bit confused by Zoe. She's sort of introduced to us with the phone calls and she's helping us. And it's never clear to me as to why she isn't under the control. Or has she really not got to that stage yet, do we think?
Apparently she did, if that serum messed her up like that.
She's infected because she's one of the two we have to decide to save. So we know she's infected, but Marguerite and Jack are far more gone than Zoe.
The serum doesn't really cure you because Lucas still had his regeneration abilities. He just wasn't under the control. So that doesn't fully cure you. It's just, something to make sure you don't get mind controlled.
Yeah.
What, Evelyn? I'm trying to tell her someone else don't want to go back.
Yeah, so was he faking that or was he the genuine? Oh, he's able to, fool her, but is he still able to see her and chat with her? But she just can't control him.
He was faking it because he says in his file, she's not on to me. The file with the list of names on it, there's a lot of inconsistencies with that file. For a start, the L next to Clancy's name, that's for Lucas because Clancy is given to Lucas. That's Clancy's video with the cake. So he dies. Also, the names, the list of names, there's a lot of people like Alicia Ashcroft's file. She says that Helen Midcliffe went missing, and there's no Helen on that list of names. There's also a few other names which appear in the game which don't appear on that list of names.
There are various rooms where you see on the wall you've got newspaper reports of missing people stories. So the Bakers all almost working independently of each other, but all for the same cause of pleasing Evelyn. I'm not sure how organised they were in sort of cataloguing who they were kidnapping for her.
Clancy L.
Yeah, I was really going to ask, what does that mean? He put everybody
probably
dead.
Loser. At the very beginning, I was hoping it was Lost. I liked the idea of him escaping and, people being like, oh, you're crazy, Baker family. That place has been abandoned for a while.
Yes, yeah.
To me, that would make more sense for Deputy Shovel. Hey, there's something going around with this place.
You don't send deputy, you send a SWAT team.
You asked for backup, goddammit. Come on.
And you certainly don't give some unknown assailant a pocket knife.
That's hilarious.
One of the letdowns for me, boss battles, whilst I enjoyed some of the earlier ones, the last boss battle, which was for me the lowest point of the game, actually, it was a huge letdown. I didn't find the boss battles at all challenging.
With the boss battles, heck, they were better than Resident Evil 6. I'll say that. I cannot deal with a Simmons fight ever again.
Oh, T-Rex Simmons was pretty good.
Yeah, T-Rex Simmons that was my favorite fight ever. No, I'm kidding. That was all. That went on way too long, especially on professional, and doing it multiple times on multiple campaigns was.
No, not professional. No hope left. God.
No hope left. Yes. Okay, but anyway, the boss battles are, in this game, I liked them a little bit more than 6, but I do agree with the final boss being disappointing. I think that it happened way too quick. I felt that the fight was going to be very short, and then when I'm playing it, I was streaming it. The first time through, and I was just playing it saying, "That's not it, is it? Come on!" And then that's in the ending. Then I see the sunset and the helicopter, and I'm like, "Oh wow, this is it."
That's exactly the same for me. Yeah, I was waiting for something else to happen. I couldn't believe it.
I only died because I was being dumb. Because I forgot I equipped the Magnum when I got picked up, and I was like, "Oh, I only have 3 shots with this." Well, that's it.
There were certain times where like I was like, why am I doing this? Like with Mia, like I would turn my back on her when she had the chainsaw. I'm like, this is just not a good idea. But it was also me trying to get used to the game being in first person. Like I had to get really used to the combat and how running away from people and using the quick turn in first person, which is, a little different.
It's a Survivor remake we've always wanted.
This is the Survivor remake that I wanted.
Yes.
There was parts like that too where I was just died because of some like stupid stuff. I know someone mentioned earlier that they didn't die once. I'm sure it's very possible. I just was bad and I messed up. I was terrible at like trying to get used to some of the mechanics. But second time around, I was like, okay, now when I got the second ending with Zoe, I was like, okay, now I kind of at that point I was able to get through the boss battles a little bit. But they were okay. They just weren't very memorable. Like I don't really think I'm going to be like, hey guys, like do you remember that one fight in 7 with like? No, I don't. I don't think so.
Yeah, I
love that fight so much.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I also like the fact that towards when you're fighting against the Marguerite/Evelyn, they give you that Albert Wesker Samurai Edge, which is freaking powerful. It's a damn cannon, man. Fuck.
It was cool seeing the Samurai Edge in first person because I was like, oh yeah. The only time I do this is on Counter-Strike with my mods, but I was like, this is insane. This is so insane.
Unfortunately, the weapon that you unlock at the end of the game only has 3 rounds. This one had 9 rounds, but man, just the fact that they put the weapon in first-person perspective shows you how beautiful the weapon Wesker Samurai Edge is, and it's just, well, I want to customize a weapon like that because it's such a beautiful weapon.
Oh, it is.
Well, it's a shame about the BOWs because I really like the design. I like the concept of the molded. I found the molded so gruesome and scary. Initially,
I actually really liked them, honestly.
Yeah,
like the only ones I hated was the fat molded because I thought that was, that's not original at all. Left 4 Dead. Yes.
I call it like a bloater because it kind of reminded me of like the spores and everything with the fungus.
Yeah, and no more challenging. That was the thing. It was meant to be kind of a step on from the standard molded type. I found the molded with the arm hook used to defend itself was more of a challenge. I would have liked to have seen, as you've got with Resident Evil 4 and 5, where the BOWs and the secondary infectants were developed upon.
I pretty much agree with everybody else. The boss fights were kind of disappointing, so I can't really add anything else.
I'll add to that. I really like the boss fights, honestly. In a weird sort of way. I like the chainsaw battle with Jack. I thought that was insane.
Oh, heck yes. My God.
That was amazing.
That was fucking amazing.
That's what I was saying earlier, that I really enjoyed the boss fights to begin with. I loved that chainsaw fight. It was really intense. The second mutation, would it be, of Jack, or third, when it's actually very similar to a Zelda boss fight, when he's kind of like that spider and he's got his eyes
Resident Evil 4. It's kind of like,
again, it's like Sadler in Resident Evil 4. They very much petered out the boss fights for me, but they're certainly promising to begin with because I agree with Yoke. I loved the chainsaw one.
In terms of scares, Margie, Mother Baker, is probably my favorite because that entire area scared the hell out of me. Like just the whole insects thing. I'm not good with insects at all.
For me, that was the hardest boss battle and was far.
I ran out of ammo during that fight. I had to finish her off with a knife. She jumps everywhere. She hides. She can grab you. And if you leave her alone too long, she spawns more insects. It's just. Oof.
But the noise that she makes when she's spawning.
Yes.
Have you heard that noise? It's
God, yes. It reminds me kind of like that woman from Evil Within. The one that has like the black hair and has like all the 10 arms and she's crawling towards you and shit. She had like 10 arms. It reminded me of that Evil Within tension because she was like freaking you hear the creepy sounds behind you and all this other shit. Like, go away, you creepy spider bitch.
I thought it was pretty disgusting that they like kind of set up their hive in her genital region.
Resident Evil 7 does not shy away from that stuff. You want a dead fetus? We got it.
Quite nasty, creepy imagery in this game. But that's what I enjoyed because one of the things that really turned me on to Resident Evil when I first played Remake, I was quite taken by surprise by how graphic and melancholy and depressing and sad the whole George Trevor and Lisa Trevor and the abduction, and there was no happy ending there at all. And it was very brutal how they disposed of that family and how calculating and cold Spencer was. Yeah, that's what I enjoyed with Remake, and again with Resident Evil 7, grotesque imagery, almost like circus freak imagery with the congealed fetus, the child that had emaciated, and so that did it for me.
I really like that Capcom took that lead because, like, wow, I mean, most of this stuff would be considered taboo in other places. So, I mean, I'm glad they went all out with the violence and the gore in this game.
I do feel like you should have lost a little bit more blood when your arm or your hand got chainsawed off. That looked a little bit weird, like just little spurts of blood. Yeah.
Is that because of the
Regen.
infection? You recover, the blood stops.
Just staple it back. It's fine. It's fine.
Should we start with Crimson Elder? What your final thoughts and your score?
Oh, you start with me, so it can only get better, is it?
Yeah. We'd want to be like RE7 and end on a sad note.
I have to rate it in amongst the other games as well. I have to take into consideration.
Far more interesting than just giving some mark out of 10. Place it where we think it is for you in terms of the other Resident Evil games. I think that'd be far more better way to grade it.
If I give it like a 7, then I'd also give 0 a 7, and I don't hold RE7 in that same regard. I think 0 is a much better game. For that purpose, I'm going to have to go with a 6.
Yoke?
I would actually give it a 7.5 out of 10. I don't see it as a great game or an excellent game. It's a good casual Resident Evil game. And to expand more on some of the stuff we talked about, going back to the bosses, I didn't see them as Resident Evil bosses. I saw them as pretty much archetypes of like horror series. Like Jack was the slasher villain, Lucas was the Saw villain, and Marguerite was crazy Japanese horror. I don't know. Puzzles were simple, but I don't see that bad. Story could have been better, but really, what's been going on in the series lately that has been so good? Revelation series, one thing really has been going on, and pretty much I put that on par with Resident Evil 7 story. Combat was good, ending was but we'll see about DLC. Replayability, I think it has a decent amount of replayability. The achievements aren't horrible like it has been in the past. There's no kill 1,000 mold. It's just use only the item box 3 times and stuff like that. Which kind of a fun little thing I did. Don't use a health item more than 3 times. Don't use the item box 3 times. And beat the game within 4 hours. That's a fun little thing to do. Madhouse mode, I think, is all right. There's a couple of bad parts. They do change around enemy and item locations a lot. Like the Scorpion Key, you actually have to buy with the coins. You don't find that. You also get 2 new items, a defense coin and attack coin. I've never used them, so I really don't know exactly what they do. I'm assuming one ups your attack, one ups your defense, but they have to be in your inventory.
There's a bit more depth to it than just simply having less ammo and less health options.
There's still a good amount of health and ammo, especially if you have the X-ray glasses you can unlock before then. You can see everything. It's still challenging, though. And one good thing is the item box is still linked, so I was happy about that because if that would have been bad.
Shinji Mikami's original thoughts were to have that survival mode and to have the item boxes that were independent of each other.
That would have been bad in Madhouse mode. That would have been real bad. Certain enemies do change, like during the barn fight, you actually fight 2 fat molded instead of 1.
That would be good because that was one of the letdowns for me when the boss battle.
Oh, it's not fun on Madhouse. It's not. It's not. And in the ship, there's about 4 more fat molded walking around too. The spider molded, they pop up sooner if I recall. I've only played it once. I do not want to play it again. Let's just put it that way.
What would you give it out of 10, and how would you sort of place it sort of in between the other RE games?
7.5 out of 10. Good casual Resident Evil game. I would recommend this for like people who aren't sure about the older Resident Evil games. Like this is a good way to get into that path instead of like the action games. And as for placement, I would put it with 0. I would put it with 0, but I really like 0. I understand the bad points to it, but I still had fun with it.
My thoughts are very similar to Yoke's. If this game had come out after remake, or if this had effectively been Resident Evil 4, I would have had more concerns about it. A lot of my delight at this game is that I've been so starved at a lot of the features that it's had and the style that it's had that I've really missed. I probably would have given it a 7 out of 10 then. Biggest letdown for me, as I say, were the boss fights towards the end, but the ones at the beginning I really enjoyed. Overall, the atmosphere, the sounds, the fact that it was stripped back, I think there were quite a lot of brave decisions Capcom made, bringing back item boxes. Yeah, a wonderful return overall for me to survival horror. I'd give it 8 out of 10. I really, really did enjoy it.
It does start going down as soon as you get to the mine, just because it seems like, we got to get this game done.
I like the mine because of the creepy sounds.
I ran through them.
The guys who made RE7 are going to be making Remake 2.
Ooh, I think that's a bright future then.
Well, that's one of the more promising things I've heard about RE2. Albert Wesker, 187, what are your final thoughts?
Capcom outdid themselves in this game. They brought back a lot of survival horror aspects from other present Resident Evil games. I like the fact that they made it first person. It's got like little puzzles that are not that difficult, but it still makes you go back and forth. All in all, Capcom outdid themselves. They still have that touch on them, and I hope they continue the good work. And the score that I'm going to give Resident Evil 7 is a 9.5 out of 10.
Oh, wow.
Whoa, so I wasn't the highest with 8.
That's how much I love Resident Evil 7. And I forgot to mention also that it has a lot of replayability. I'm already on my 4th playthrough as it is, and I'm really looking forward to playing it more and more and more. So I'm like I said, Capcom outdid themselves in this game, and they showed the world that they can still make survival horror.
You know, when you're walking around the household, the Baker's house, and you'll hear just these really weird, spooky noises just for coming upstairs, creaking of the banisters and things, which for me really adds again to the atmosphere and shows that there was a lot of thought put into this game as well.
This is like a really good crossover game for those who are maybe not ready for the old school stuff and into the action stuff.
CC?
I'm trying to think of a way not to be too negative here.
Do it.
I think as most of us are longtime fans of the series, we're all aware that the main storyline was fractured and no one knows how to fix it. So I see 7, I see 7 as more of a reboot of Capcom kind of testing the waters and trying to decide which direction they need to go. I think it's a bit premature to say that the series is back to survival horror. I think we need to wait and see what they do with the next installments, like say Rev 3 or 8. But they are definitely on the road, but they are not home. I think they have a ways to go yet. So I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10.
Oh, that was a really good review.
Revelations 3 is going to feature Billy Cohen and Rebecca Chambers from what my source told me.
Has that been
you heard it here
substantiated?
first, guys.
His source works with Capcom. His source also told him that there's another Wesker child alive.
Oh, fuck off.
Laura,
Yeah.
I think Laura was
Yeah.
unaccounted for.
There's another Wesker child alive. They were obsessed with Albert because of the power that he maintained, but he was telling me that Rebecca and Billy will be coming out in Revelations 3.
Are they going to move in the direction of survival horror, though, or are they going to keep in that frame?
If this doesn't sell well, I think we can kiss goodbye to anything that resembles this style of game. Jill Sandwich, what are your final thoughts? What's your review? Scores out of 10, and where do you see this fitting within the series and comparing with the other Resident Evil games?
I agree with Yoke in a sense where the whole, like, this is also for that casual aspect of people that are possibly getting into it. The crafting was really nice. I thought that was a great feature, the scavenging and everything, like, putting all that together, combining. The item boxes were a nice return. Tape recorder, that's kind of like the typewriter, and it was cool. It was nice to see that. The combat was, pretty cool. I like the fact that it was scaled back. You didn't get a big artillery. I like that there was no upgrading. I do like that as well. The environments were cool. I like the environments a lot. They were pretty creepy. Again, the boss fights were pretty forgettable. Didn't care about the characters. I think that what they could have possibly done, they possibly could have tried a lot more things with this one, considering it's kind of revamping certain things about the story. I feel like they could have tried just a little bit more at possibly making it, and maybe that has to do with the characters. Maybe I feel like that's why it could have been a little bit better. Maybe feeling that disconnect that I'm not really used to with the other characters. I'm not a fan of the DLC. I don't like paying more for a game I already got. The molded and stuff like that, I wasn't too big a fan of those. I thought there could have been a little bit bigger of a choice. But in general, I'd give it a 7.5 out of 10 after everything. I would have preferred this game to be fixed camera angles, to be perfectly honest, over first person. It's more of a casual game, but it still gave me enough to where I did enjoy it. It's definitely not like the best Resident Evil ever. It's not something that I would put anywhere close on my top list at all. But I still think it's still there's a lot of thought. And after Resident Evil 6, I think that this was a pretty nice step in a decent direction for the series. They're almost there. Like, I definitely don't think this is a return to survival horror. I really wanted to feel like it was more on that page, but like I playing it again is when I was just like, they're just trying, like, it was just not quite yet.
When you say that, what was it? Anything specifically that was preventing you from? Because that's the thing perhaps that differs between yourself and me and Albert Wesker, whereas we very much felt that remake survival horror.
I got something for that. Okay, we have talked about remake throughout this podcast. Let me ask you guys this. Was there ever a moment in 7 when you felt like you did in the moment when you had to electrocute the shark and jump into the water, walk around it, and pick up that key. I was scared shitless. I didn't want to do it.
Yeah, in the basement with the molded, and the molded were coming out of the walls.
Really? Didn't scare me that much.
Really?
A little bit in the boiler room, but the main part I noped at was the kids' room.
Oh,
When
yeah.
you're on your way to get the D series on. That's just my
Absolutely.
thing. I can't do the kid like creepy kid thing. Nope. Almost from fear, can't do it. Nope, not doing it.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I don't know if you know that fear that you get when you maybe more as a child when you're so scared you actually get annoyed. I was playing that section with my son sat next to me, and when I went to go back into that little girl's room, he was actually, what are you doing? You've already been in there. I mean, he was so tense. He didn't want to go anywhere near that room again. And
Picking up the teddy bear and the mold just takes over it. It's like nope.
Oh,
Just
yeah,
need to turn around now.
Yeah, and I like when you go into before you go into room, Evelyn is like, stay away. It's like, oh shit.
The one thing that I really had a hard time dealing with was I guess it's a closet that looked like the closet from Resident Evil 1 when a zombie jumped out. I kept trying to inch away from it to continue through the room.
CC, you ask about when were we scared, and there were many times when seeing my own shadow scared me, and particularly on the
bunch of pansies.
Whether I'll get this on a third and fourth playthrough. My first and second playthrough, no, I was in the basement and in the boiler room and around there. I was very scared.
The part that scared me in Resident Evil 7 as well is when you're on the ship and you go into the locker and the guy pops up like, oh, what the hell happened here? I wasn't expecting that. Even right now that I've played the game 4 times, there's still parts of the game that still freak me out sometimes too.
Of course, like when somebody's chasing you in Resident Evil 7 and you can't see behind you, like, of course that's intense, but that could be any game. The stuff that Resident Evil Remake did to give it that aspect, since we're going back to Remake a lot, and as we should, because that has very good points of that horror aspect. I just felt as environments were creepy at times, and there was little drops and hints at in RE7 that gave me that feeling. I just thought that, there was just a little bit like playing it again and seeing and trying to see if I could find anything else out of that, pull it from, the overall game. I couldn't really pinpoint it. Maybe it was just the fact that it wasn't fixed camera angles. Maybe something would have worked a little bit better. Maybe the format just didn't do it for me, but I didn't find myself getting too creeped out.
15 years old Remake is. 15 years from now, you play RE7 and tell me you still feel the same way about it.
Well, that's a good point. And no, it's certainly not as good as that. And Remake, nothing ever will be, because, that's almost the original, the granddaddy.
It's definitive, yeah.
Nothing's going to feel that fresh again. CT?
As for me, I'm more, to a casual gamer. I used to play a lot, so for Resident Evil 7, overall, I would give this game probably 6.5 out of 10. I feel like the game has changed a lot. It's like a revamp, but I really love the graphics so much. It's unbelievably beautiful. For me, it's really interesting. It's really nice to see how the game developed into another series that continue to blow everyone's mind, even though it seems very different. The gameplay, well, I'm not really a fan of first-person shooter, but I did enjoy that aim so much. I was hoping that it could be just like that aim, but I was wrong. It was like all first-person shooter, and we couldn't even see how Ethan Winters looks like. There was a part where Ethan got his mouth was shoved by a knife. I was very curious to see how he looked like after that happened.
We were talking about that, and we believe that Ethan is infected. So we believe that maybe even though Jack did that to him, he was able to regenerate.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Ethan Winters is still a mystery to me.
Hopefully the Japanese translations and this new DLC is going to reveal more about everything, or we have to wait till another game. Revelations 3, starting Ethan Winters.